I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Janelle, could you please take roll call?
Bertle,
Here.
Chanel,
Here.
Bell,
Here.
Kane,
Here.
Harf,
Here.
and Onasorg.
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
Hart, all in favor?
Aye.
Here. Is there a motion to approve November 26, 2024 meeting minutes as presented?
The motion.
So moved.
By Harf, second by Kane. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Here. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. Is there anybody joining us that would like to address the Plan Commission? Anybody zooming in?
Nope, nobody has their hands up.
Okay. And there was one piece in our packet from Steve Musinski pertaining to street lighting. So agenda item 5A, temporary use portable sauna door hotel 2329 Mill Road.
Hey, just real quickly, there's a typo in your staff memo. Door was DOOR, so I just want to correct that. But basically, they're having an event in February. It's a health and wellness event. They would like to put up a portable sauna for the event. And it would be, you saw in the map, it's kind of between the door and CHOP. So they did include a little diagram of where it would be located and then what the sauna looks like. The Plan Commission's role in this would be to decide whether it's allowed, and then, of course, if there's any special conditions, like when it can be set up, when it could be taken down, location, things of that nature.
How long is his wellness event?
Well, they have here that it would be for February 8th and 9th.
James is in the audience if you had any questions for him.
Happy to answer any questions, yes.
It's just those 2 days?
Well, yeah, because on page 12, what's written up there, pop-up sauna on trailer one time, any 2 consecutive Saturday, Sunday misspelled before 2 consecutive Saturdays and Sundays. We're talking about 2 different weekends. I don't understand.
So page 12 does say that, however, they did get in contact with Janelle and said it would just be for February 8th and 9th. So that is our understanding. It is just February 8th and 9th.
Okay.
But
And it stays on the trailer?
Ago, 3 years ago, I think Mary Kay was on when this came up to be here permanently.
Right. And we said no.
Mhm.
An event is a different thing. Do you have to drive across the lawn to get it?
Yes.
And what would be your access point?
Typically, and during Fall Fest, you would come in at the corner of Bay Shore and Mill Road. The sidewalk that's leading up to CHOP, in between CHOP and the Door Hotel. That's the access point.
So do they go over village property?
Yeah.
Do we have anything there in the ground? Any sprinkler heads?
you know, I'm not sure. You'd stay on the sidewalk, James, is that right?
We would not stay on the sidewalk. It would be on the grass in front of the hotel. If we needed to use a different access point, we'd be more than happy to.
So I think I don't know if there's any sprinklers or what's out there, so we'd
I
probably.
mean, just on our corner.
Right, just on
Yeah.
our property.
There is not a spring.
There's not an in-ground sprinkler in there?
Okay.
We shouldn't, on the village property, there shouldn't be, if there's no sprinkler there, there shouldn't be anything else there. Nothing else we'd have to worry about.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary use.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by her. What, little further discussion?
So
What
it's-
if the lawn gets torn up? From the truck or the trailer?
They would have to restore it.
Is that an automatic or does that have to be part of our motion?
It should be part of the motion that they restore any damage to village property. I think you also have to look at, because there is the discrepancy in what was sold to Janelle in that page 12. Just clarify what dates you're approving it for as well.
You want me to read the motion that I've got?
Well, we already have a motion in a second, so either that or.
I can amend, I mean, to have it be February, let's say 7th through 10th, that it can be there, that gives them a day to place it and a day to remove it. The weekend, and that they would restore any damage done to village property.
Which we may not know till spring. Depending upon what kind of snow cover
Yeah,
we do or don't have.
until the snow is melted, whenever,
Yeah.
hopefully that's spring.
Yeah, if we don't have to go over village property, we don't need to, certainly. No, that would be a sticking point.
Not a sticky point, just a,
Williams, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so February 7th, set up and take down on the 7th, take down on the 10th for 2 days, which is the 8th and the 9th. Is when it could operate.
I do have a question. Is this just gonna be a one-time thing once a year? Is this gonna be brought to us, again, other months or again, a couple times during the year or what?
that's not really though what's, I understand why you would ask that, Patrice, but that's not really what's in front of us right now.
Yeah. Just concerned about that. One time?
One time, these dates. Okay, all those in favor respond with an aye. Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you. Item 5B, Development Agreement Amendment Exterior Revisions, Eagle Mechanical on Highway 57. Do we know why they decided to change the exterior? Because I liked the other one much better.
Yes, so I did talk with Mark from Eagle Mechanical and he said that it's too similar to the Wolf Brothers, their competitor on the other side of town, their building.
Oh.
And the building across the street, the new aquatic center, it would be the same as that. So they're trying not to look just like the neighbors, and so they wanted to change it. They also felt it would look better with the wooded background that they have with the trees that are behind there.
Okay.
I do want to clarify too, Mark did get a hold of me. He said the gables are not black. It's the fascia, soffits, window trim and entry doors are to be black. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I did want to point that out.
Yeah, minor. Any questions? So we would make a motion to amend the development agreement and forward it to the board.
Correct.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Bell,
I'll second.
second by her, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Carried. Item 5C, architectural review, site plan review, facade and entrance improvements to Husby's 10641 North Bay Shore Drive. Chad is with us this evening. All I can say is that I really love it when locals own a business and take pride in their community, because some of the best renovations that have happened in this village have been the Creamery from JJ, Mitchett on Deck, and now Husby's, which really is lending itself to what Husby's looked like years ago with bigger windows and whatever.
Probably no asbestos, so we can't do that.
Pardon?
No asbestos, so we can't do that.
Thank you for that.
So as the package showed, they're gonna be renovating the front of the building to look more historic. Or I think it looks more historic and beautiful project what they have in mind there. They would be also redoing the side entry. John Sawyer, one of the partners, did get a hold of me on Monday morning to let me know they did have the surveyor calculate the distance from the right of way for that side entry. And it is 5.18 feet from the building. So I think, you know, if we're inclined to approve it, we would just want to make sure it doesn't go beyond that. Otherwise, it's in a right of way.
The idea is, we're not even gonna change the staircase, right, which is probably similar to whatever that distance is, but we wanna have a structure put in place where we can have a temporary seasonal, kind of like Al's does. Keep the cold out, little transition area. It won't be up there year round like that. The roof structure will be, or whatever
Right.
John has in it will be, but the rest of it won't be. I mean, I don't even think we're gonna.
So you're not redoing the steps?
We're not
It's the
redoing
steps
steps,
that
changing the railings.
have been there for.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, unless John told Julie we are, I'm not aware of it in our discussions. I don't think we are.
Yeah, the picture shows
Yeah,
it
we're
being
not-
different,
Yeah.
so.
The one thing that's not in here is, are you sticking with the same colors that you currently have, or are you?
Well, I mean, it's gonna be kind of we're doing cedar shake.
Okay,
So it's gonna be similar, as there's a picture of what we did at the filling station where it was an accent piece up near the point of it. That'll be what the front of the building looks like. And there'll be obviously a couple of aesthetic windows put up top.
Yep.
All the windows will be replaced in the front, black, cladding on them, I guess.
yeah, because I think at the original, there were 3 windows up there, so putting 2 back up there.
Yeah, and I think with how the sign is to put, that's why 2 make more
Yep.
sense. And the lights will be black as well, and in that same kind of style Mitch has aiming at such sign.
Chad, I know I didn't talk about the lights with John, but
I know I asked him today because I'm like, yeah, I've been to these meetings before, and he's gonna want pictures of lights and want me to like juggle them. Just kidding, but no, they'll be black barn style. I don't think we picked them out yet, but obviously if it's something you need a further approval of at some point, we can get that, but we need to order these windows more than anything like tomorrow to get this project done in spring. That's the main thing. But if you need a sign off on lights, once we identify them, John can provide them to you, but they'll be very similar to what Mitch has, but they'll be black. They'll be in that barn style
Sure.
directional.
Sure.
they have a shield over them so the light goes
Yeah,
down, so
that
they're
kind
dark
of,
sky friendly.
yeah, when I say barn style, it's got that kind of cape housing around it.
So the light doesn't reflect and destroy
Yeah.
the night sky.
And would they have to come back in for the sign permit also because they're moving it?
I don't think we're changing the sign though. We didn't plan on it.
Oh, I thought that looked like,
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
I thought the
if we do
sign went-
sign, we don't have a plan for design, so.
okay, it looked like a sign to me on page 24. That's why you have the lights there up on the second story.
I think his drawing is.
I think we should just make that a condition, because normally if you're moving a sign, we would require a permit, so.
Even just to move a sign,
Right,
That's what,
right, because we have to review the location of it.
Okay.
So,
well, that's fine.
But that can just be a
Again,
condition.
that's something we can handle later.
yeah,
I think it has to be moved based on. I got a picture before. I don't even know if we're moving it, to be honest, but I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's beautiful.
When you look at lights, 2,700K or less is what the plan commission usually likes. So like a warmer light,
$27,000 each,
2,700K,
as far as the brightness.
the color. Like
Oh.
a warm light versus.
Yeah,
a
I
blue
mean,
light.
and that's a warm color, right? Good, you know, I hate those daytime lights.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's all bulbs anyway these days, so that's not a big deal.
It is, I was just trying to, if you haven't picked up the lights yet, just save you. I mean, unless you
Thank
just
you.
want to make it more challenging.
No, thank you. I mean, we'll probably get a fancy system where we can have them flash and do all kinds of. That'll look nice.
I
John.
I can't tell by the windows what's on top of the windows. Are those like a tiny roof or something?
Those are the awnings that we have in place.
The awnings, okay. The drawing is not very good. I mean, as far as for us to
Yeah, he drives like a second grader, but he thinks it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's better than what I could do. I thought it was pretty
It is-
good.
It's better than that.
Yeah,
So if we're inclined to approve it, those could be two conditions, is one that the lights be reviewed prior to their placement, and then that permit is required to relocate the sign.
Perfect.
do you have that written, Janelle?
Okay, do you want to say anything about the size of the new entryway? No,
No, because they're not
okay,
doing anything with the steps.
okay,
I think the entryway concern from John was, through Julie for the village, was we don't have anything over it right now. Like we do, there's part of the building structure that's part of the building, and then you come in maybe 2 feet or something, but we would extend something like an awning, but it'll be more like a shed roof off there that we could attach vinyl or something to. That will be coming out, I guarantee you. Well, I know it won't go over whatever that 5.1 is, if that's what's allowed. I personally don't even think it'll be anywhere close that far out, but that's why he made note to make you guys aware of that, because that will be changing. But the door will be the same, the staircase will be the same, the railings will be the same, it's just a cover over it, basically.
okay, you want me to read this?
Please.
Okay. That the plan commission grants approval for the owners of Busby's to see that the building that is located at 10641 North Bay Shore Drive is remodeled in the fashion depicted on the elevation drawings and building plans that were reviewed at this meeting. The approvals are granted on the condition that if the existing sign for Busby's is going to be moved, a sign permit will be required. And before any lighting is installed, a referral shall be made to the village administrator. If necessary, a referral shall then be made to the plan commission.
I don't need, the lighting needs to come back here. I'd rather just have it go to the plan commission chair for approval, just like a sign.
So,
Okay,
okay, so, okay, a referral shall be made to the village administrator and the plan commission chair for approval.
sure.
So move.
Motion by Kane,
Second.
second by Hart. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I,
Thank you very much.
Carried. Good luck.
Well, I'm gonna listen to B2 and see how bad you guys are screwing that up since I'm here.
Perfect timing. Item 5D, site plan review, retail area expansion and alpaca displays, alpaca to apparel at 2340 Mill Road.
Hey, just a correction in the packet, Ben has not purchased the property yet, their purchase is contingent, I believe, on the. So, what you have in front of you is their proposal, they're gonna take the former Glow building. And use it for retail. Normally, we wouldn't be concerned if it's going retail to retail, but they are expanding the area that they would be using for retail. And then, of course, they do want to have alpacas displayed out front periodically. You have the staff review in or staff report in the packet. It does talk about the parking and then some recommended conditions. And then Ben has seen this as well, so he knows, what was suggested. in
Is
there.
Ben with us?
Yes.
Okay, hi, Ben.
Hi.
So how many alpacas at a time?
2 or 3.
And on, obviously one space is much larger. The proposed area number 1 is much larger than area 2. Do you know what the square footage of that green area is?
Is it drawn to scale, Pen?
It was around this area.
So it's about 40 by 20 maybe overall.
The reason that I asked that question, because I did some research on alpacas, who are basically mostly shy animals, very friendly. But it does say that if they don't have enough room to roam, they can become stressed and unhappy. And if they're in that much smaller area and there's 3 of them in there right up against the sidewalk, I don't know how I feel about that. What kind of space are they, what kind of square footage are they at in your Fish Creek store?
Probably, we'll see, 8, 16. Probably about 24 by 20. However, like when we take them to the farmer's market, they're in a 10 by 10 pen. They're not, I wouldn't necessarily bring 3 full grown alpacas. What I would do is I would probably, and what we try to do is bring out the mother, her baby, and then a companion for the mother so that she doesn't get stressed out. Where if she's just left, you can't just bring one.
Yep.
If they get stressed out, if you just have one. But if you
They're a herd animal.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and they prefer to have, another adult female with them when they have a baby. The baby is not a good enough companion just for the mother, that stresses them out.
And when you have them at the farmer's market in Bailey's Harbor, what are those hours that they're in that small of a space?
9, 8:30 till then we get out of there, the last things we clean up, probably almost 3 o'clock.
What's my concern?
Sure.
They would be displayed Friday, Saturday, Sunday during business hours, 9 to 8. May through November. So that's 6 months, 3 days a week. And that's tiny space that they're in. The bigger space is closer to the building. But that's not very big either. And I just have a problem with having the animals there. It would literally be 33 hours a week. If they went 3 days a week from during the business hours. So I would assume they'd have to be there before the business hours and after the business hours, so it might even be.
Right, and when I put the business hours in there, I counted for an hour to set up and an hour to take it down.
Okay,
And get them out of there during the day. I didn't want it to be 7 o'clock and then have the town coming after us at 7 o'clock because the alpacas are still there.
I don't
Just close the
know
door.
what kind of precedent this is setting for a small area that it's in. There's rentals on one side. Shop is across the street. And there's a rental, you're at the back of the other rental of that little real estate office on the corner.
Denise, I have a concern. I think we're getting into a weird area here with allowing animals outside of businesses in Sister Bay. I mean, one example is the creamery. They put goats in a tiny little pathetic pen outside of their business on a hot summer day. I know goats on the roof, that's seems a little different to me because it's on a roof, it's more removed from ground level sidewalk. But this is going to be, right in the pedestrian area with it's so crowded down in Sister Bay in the season anyway, and to have them down there, I think it will stress out the alpacas. And I just don't think it's a good fit for Sister Bay as far as having animals like a zoo atmosphere or Dell's atmosphere in the downtown shopping and eating, area, business area. I just don't like it.
These animals are about $10,000 a piece, so I'm not gonna do anything. I mean, we don't raise the animals to stress them out or cause any undue harm to them. I mean, we've taken good care of them all across for the past 15 years. We've been doing this and we've been doing events and having them out. So if it caused stress or undue harm to the animals, we would definitely take care of that. We wouldn't even be proposing it. I wouldn't come here with the idea if we were gonna harm our pets, our animals, or our investment.
I don't think it's setting a precedent any more than Al's did so many years ago. I mean, I understand that it is slightly different having it on the roof and away from people, but out of the thing, I think that we have to trust the business owner to be the alpaca expert or not. And I guess I would ask, have you had any issues in your other locations? And you believe based on your other locations, this is enough space? I mean, is this more or less than your other location for the?
It's about the same, and I've not had any problems with animals becoming stressed out or having a problem at Fish Creek or at any of the farmers markets ever really.
Okay.
And do people go up to them and pet them?
There's some, they each have their own personality. So there's some that are really friendly and will come up to the fence and let you pet them and just love it. And then, there's some that'll kind of hang back and leave the one that really loves to be petted, take the pets, and, the other one will hang back and not be quite as friendly.
So Ben, you're gonna be putting a fence up there?
I would, yeah, whatever the plan commission wants for look, or we could do temporary fencing, just green steel fencing that we put up on the animal. That's not what I would like to do, because I wouldn't want to put it up all the time, but,
No, we don't,
you don't like that.
no, we don't allow that.
Okay,
No, it would have to be a white picket fence.
yeah, that's what we have in Fish Creek too.
I'm really torn on the 3. It was 2. I'm much more inclined for the space. But that means then that you can never bring a baby.
Right.
Do you wanna maybe break it down first into the retail operation? Decide whether you're gonna put that and then maybe deal with the alpaca.
I have no problem with everything else, anything else.
Anybody else?
I mean, other than, no, they can't park the trailer there and take up one of the parking spaces. That has to be removed and parked someplace else all day.
When I read this, the things that jump out to me are when they're gonna be there. One place says Friday through Sunday. One place in there says time to time. Another says occasionally. Those to me mean 3 different things. And I would have wanted to say this would be the time they're gonna be there. Because time to time means you might bring them today, won't bring them for a week. When you say Friday to Sunday, that's every week, weather permitting, obviously. But it seems like it's all over the place when they be there. And those spots are very small, for any animal, in my eyes.
So it is Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Huh?
I said it is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is your
Yeah,
request. Is there, the
personally,
hours of your retail shop?
in Fish Creek, we're open, 10 till 7 Friday, Saturday. 10 till 5 on Sundays, and that's what I would plan on doing here.
Discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
I'd like to say something before you make that. one.
Okay, I will hold off then.
Okay.
Give me, but
Is there a way, I think we did it with, the Peach Barn with their food truck. Where we approved it for 1 year.
Yeah.
And to see if there were any issues and then, we could hear feedback, good, bad, otherwise. Were there any issues? And I think I'd be comfortable with doing that. Just because it is something very different that we haven't dealt with. Because the fence does go right up to the sidewalk, not that if the fence was even back farther, if the green space was laid out differently, that people wouldn't walk on the lawn up to the fence, you know, to, to see them, but are you interested in making that part of your motion or not?
I'm thinking about this here, and here's where my concern is if there is. If it's just a 50% plan commission vote, something doesn't go right, and then just the majority doesn't like it. If I'd say, I'd go along with that if we make it a 3/4 vote. So if there's problems, and we know when the plan commission's like, there's problems. So there'd have to be something substantial, because I'm gonna put myself in issues. Well, if the plan commission doesn't like something in a year, well, then what, this is all out the window? And also, I think what you're talking about is applying it to the alpacas. Not everything, just to make sure that. So I guess if,
But doesn't their offer to purchase depend on if the alpacas are approved? So if you give him a year, that's not really fair to him either.
Right.
I would prefer to see maybe fewer days. I think that 3 days a week for 6 months is a lot. So if we did it maybe a key weekend day, a Saturday, which is normally the most business during a tourist time, because Friday people are coming in, Saturday they're doing all their stuff, on Sunday they're leaving. So if it was like 1 day a week for that 6 months, this just seems extreme, 3 days a week.
How many alpacas do you have, Ben?
About 20, we're expecting 8 babies this year.
I just don't like this.
So it's
this
not,
small.
it's not the same alpacas that are. That you have at all the places.
Right.
That are always in a smaller pen, not.
Right.
so when you're saying the 1 day, 3 days a week is too much for you, you're saying that you're saying the traffic and everything.
It's such a
surrounding it?
congested little spot. If it was over by the band shell,
Okay.
that would be a different thing.
Wouldn't Saturday be like the worst day to have them do that then?
Well, I
If it
mean,
was the busiest day?
for his perspective, for business, the idea is to see the alpacas and relate it to the business.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that would at least give him a busier tourist day. I'm not wild about having them on that particular lot because I think it's very small. And in Fish Creek, that building is set farther back off the street than Glow is, so.
I guess if we're gonna do a reduction in days, what would make sense to you, or is that a deal breaker? I mean, are we discussing something that doesn't even?
No, if you want to do a reduction on days, Saturday and Sunday. Would be. Okay, and then if you could also allow it like a Friday Fall Fest.
How about? Because is there certain weather that you would not bring them down for?
If it's raining really, really hard, I probably would not. If it's sprinkling, that's not gonna hurt them.
Okay.
What about heat?
Heat, if it's. If we put them in the area number one, then there's shade.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be overly concerned about heat, but I mean, if it's like 100 degrees, I probably wouldn't bring them.
Because some days the goats aren't even put out just
I know.
because of the weather. What about? Is it too difficult to say 2 out of the 3 days, whether it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and depending upon what's going on?
And I wouldn't be looking at bringing them, really before Memorial Day. But Memorial Day is always in May, so that's why I included it in the months. And I wouldn't be really looking at bringing them much into November. But that last weekend, that Halloween weekend could fall into November, so that's why I included it in the full.
The area number 2 is very small. Would it be possible to keep them in area 1? It's a little bit bigger. I mean, do you look at it from how much grass they're gonna eat?
Yeah, I just didn't want them to trample the grass and then have like bad looking lawn. Would you guys be okay with pushing area 1 back to the back of the structure so that there's a tucked area that they can go and hang out in if they. You can give them a little bit more space if they don't want to necessarily be up by people.
Mean closer to the front of the building or along the side of the building?
Along the side of what was the old garage on the building.
Is there a fence over there between that and that other building?
There's a partial fence, it's in pretty bad shape, most of it's fallen down, I think.
Well, I think people would want to see them up front. I mean, I like the idea that they could go back there. But if you got people that are gonna try to walk back there, they're probably gonna be on the neighbor's property, walking back to get behind the building. That would be the only concern.
And I guess I'm not saying all the way behind the building, just that little. I don't know if anybody can see this, but just up to like,
The corner there,
yeah,
okay.
give them a little bit more space. A little bit of privacy if they want it.
Is there a little bit more shade back there?
I think there's trees all along that
Okay.
property line.
Oh, but that faces east, so once the sun comes around, that would be a non-factor.
But the building would shade them then.
Let me ask a different question. At 7 o'clock at night, how long does it take you in the morning?
As long as we can get everybody out of the store.
So you back the trailer into your parking lot or you do it off the street?
I will pull the trailer into the parking lot. Yeah, loading the animal takes 5 minutes. It's the rest of the shutdown stuff at the store that might take.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, 7 o'clock on a Friday, Saturday night. And CHOP is involved with a ton of people and cars. It might be a little more complicated than just pulling in.
What do you think? 2 days, 1 day? I mean, well, you said 1 day. Does 2 days work for you?
You know, if he could push them back to area number 1 and then give them a little bit more space alongside the building. 2 days, I would say, and I don't know, do you want to make it his choice of which days? I don't like that little corner right by their driveway. It is so small. And I just think with cars going in and out, people walking back and forth, it just adds to the confusion right there.
2 days a week with with the added space on two? You're saying that not able to use one at all?
I don't like number two. I like, this is
Oh,
number
no,
one
okay, number
over
one,
here.
okay.
That space gives them a little more space. They're not right on the main
Mhm.
drag. And it actually would draw people into the building instead of just standing on the corner and walking away. They'd have to walk up the sidewalk and then they might go, oh, well, let's go in the building.
So you're saying would you just not even include number two?
No.
Or you're saying,
No, I don't like,
Just leave it at one,
just use one. They can extend
expanded
it.
one.
Yeah, extend it
Okay,
back a
expand
little
it.
bit.
so if it's 2 days a week and then there's the area one is expanded, is that something you can work with? Okay, I think we should also be clear that unless we're gonna send Julie on alpaca patrol, I mean, like, this is gonna be. You know, up to, unless there's an egregious violation, it's not gonna be something we're gonna check. This is what we're directing now, so we'll know, but.
So. I understand why you might not wanna give it. Limit, or why you wouldn't wanna limit it to a year, I understand. So what recourse is there if we approve this? And there's issues, what do we do?
Well, like anything, you know, if it's a violation of the approval, he's gotta stop. And if he doesn't, then we issue citations. So that's our recourse on it.
Okay, what if there's incidents with the public on the sidewalk? What if one of them spits and somebody doesn't like it?
I think that's a good question. I would think they would take that up with Ben because it was coming from his property. I don't think the village is at any liability because they didn't spit. It's nothing that happened on village property.
It's not a liability thing, it's that we don't want it to happen in the village kind of thing.
Right, yeah, I'm not, it's not the liability, it's just that if we got complaints from people, they don't like walking down there, they're, you know.
Smell, whatever.
They're over
Denise, Denise,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can help me with understanding something. In the village, what is the code for having animals outside of your business? Are there restrictions as far as like how many, what kind?
No,
it doesn't mention it at all, that's the problem.
I'm just worried that this is setting a precedent that, the next person with a business wants to have chickens or they want to have a horse or, it just seems like it's kind of starting something that could turn into a nightmare for us. Again, just the whole, zoo type feel that kind of it promotes down there.
Because I'm not gonna try to project that coming forward. I understand your concern. But I couldn't deny this application on what precedent it might set for other businesses. Not every business is gonna wanna have an animal out front. Proves, popular and people wanna, pet pigs and bunnies and who knows? But I guess we'd have to deal with that at that time.
Denise, I guess in regard to your question about what if people don't like it, if they don't like the smell or they don't like being spit on, it sounds harsh, but I would say they just need to walk on the other side of the sidewalk.
Okay, well, I'm just
Yeah.
asking, is there, if we give blanket approval to the proposal?
I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like the noise that comes out of a car, for example, and you don't like, I know it sounds callous, but if you don't like the noise coming out of that business, maybe just walk on the other side of the street. I mean, you can't. or you don't like the smell of baked goods, so you don't walk past a bakery, right? I mean, there has to be that element
I
where,
just, you're answering my question, so thank you. Yeah,
so just to recap so far what I have as far as what you're inclined to grant, the conditions I have written down so far would be there's no trailer parking in the lot. Fence permit required, fences of course have to be out of right of ways, which kind of limits some of the space that's shown. The landscaping has to be maintained. Any dead or dying vegetation shall be replanted. That's a big one since we've had issues on that property. And then the trash and recycling bins would be under the stair and screened from view. We've talked about that, Ben. So it looks like really the only thing, if you're okay with it, is to just decide on the alpacas. And the other conditions would be recommended conditions to make sure we don't have issues on the property.
So what do we expect them to do with the trailer if it's not parked in the parking lot?
He had said they would come in and drop them off.
Okay.
And then come back and get them.
Okay.
Even though I don't particularly like the one area, the smaller area, I don't feel that if we limit it to 2 days a week, except for the Fall Fest weekend where they could be there throughout the festival, that would have to, be part of it. The motion or the approval, but I think he should have, I think he should have that option, just because I don't like it. He is their owner. He's been doing this for a long time, has 20 of them, knows their personalities, knows them best. I still like the idea of expanding area number 1 a little bit more. But I understand too, I mean, if we take it down to 2 days a week, that gives, I don't know how much grass they eat. I don't know how much they beat down on the lawn that's there. If 5 days is enough for it to spring back. I think you should be able to use both of them, hopefully more often than not, just the larger area, but as an alternative at times. I'm okay. I don't love it, but I'm okay. But there's a lot of things that I approve that I don't love. But I have no good reason to deny.
So you're saying that you're supportive of the expanded alpaca area number 1, and then alpaca area number 2, except for that part in the right of way, and then limiting it to the 2 days a week plus Fall Fest.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Janelle, do you have that written?
Well, I can. We'll try.
Okay.
Okay. That the plan commission grants permission for Ben Kornowski from Alpaca Tool Apparel to convert most of the first floor area of the building that formerly housed Kipkas and Glow that is located at 2340 Mill Road to retail space. Permission is also granted for Mr. Kornowski to retain the rental on the second floor of the previously mentioned building and display his alpacas on the lawn in the designated areas from time to time,
No,
2 days per week.
Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. Hold on, okay. Saturday and Sunday. It's from May through November.
Yes.
Do we really want to limit him on that? I mean, if there's good weather in the winter, I mean, does it matter?
That's what he's asking for.
Okay. Just didn't want to limit business in the winter.
And then it's on the condition that all those conditions that Julie read are complied with.
Plus Friday of Fall Fest.
Yep, I got that.
There is a portion of the rental that's on the first floor that you access from the back. I don't know if you need that in the motion.
No, that was on the plans.
Okay.
Then we should be okay with that. It's, what basically what they approve for retail is what was submitted in the plans, so that's what they'll hold you to, because that's what we base the parking on.
Okay, motion by Bell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kane. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye. Aye. Opposed?
No,
Okay, didn't see that coming.
3-3.
3-3. Okay, that failed.
Okay, so the ayes were Denise, Ron, and Nate. The nays were Mitch, Patrice, and Laurel. Okay.
Okay, one of the three of you that voted in the negative. Do you have a motion that you would like to make?
I would make the motion to use the area number 1 and not number 2.
Number
Because-
1 and be expanded.
Yes, and then I don't have a problem with the 2 days.
Same conditions as everything else. just
Yes,
Number 1
just
expanded.
Just only using area number 1. And when it's expanded, I think it's a little bit more space. It's a lot more space than that little corner.
Well, and the corner is also, there's a lot more of the green space in the right of way there too, which they wouldn't be able to utilize.
It's just right next to the driveway, going in, right next to the the sidewalk. Just, I looked at this space tonight on the way here, and it's just very small. You get a different vision when you're looking at this picture. It's very small.
Would you like to make that motion then, Laurel?
Okay, I would make the motion to
Okay,
use just area number 1 and everything else the same.
okay. Is there a second? I will second it just for the sake of voting. Can we do a roll call this time?
Sure. Okay, Bertle.
Yes.
Okay. Just gonna go around the table. Hart,
Yes, on the one I proposed?
yeah. Bell,
Yes.
Kane,
Yes.
Onisor,
No.
and Champo.
no,
Motion carried. Okay, a little painful.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry, before we move off of that, was a development agreement required?
Because of the alpacas, I will say yes. What do you think?
I personally think the conditions are enough. I mean, it's not a conditional use permit, but to issue it with the conditions, I think it's enough, but
All right, that's
You're-
fine then. Okay. I can
It's
pull
up to
back
you
on,
guys.
no, I can pull back on that.
Ron, what do you think?
I think it's fine.
Okay,
I don't think you need it.
all right. Good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. 5E, proposed text amendments, chapter 66B2 overlay.
Okay, so we've been talking about this for almost a year. And the last time we visited it, we made some more changes to it. Those changes are shown in red. Everything else remains the same.
Okay. So, oh, we have no numbers of lines on this.
No.
Okay, in the first, uses allowed in the first red paragraph, the last sentence. And if authorized by conditional use permit upon finding the use would be compatible in the neighborhood. How do we quantify that? How, I mean.
Yeah.
It's, it's vague, it might be vague on purpose for, you know, to allow as much in. Others could say that it's vague, that would give us too much leeway to say no. So how do we quantify it?
So I think that's a very subjective term that is used throughout the code.
Okay.
When we're reviewing stuff, we'll often see it has to be compatible with the neighborhood. I think it's on a case by case basis, and basically, when you're doing the conditional use permit, of course, neighbors are getting notice on it. And that's, I think, a good gauge of whether something is compatible. If everybody objects to it, it's probably not a compatible use.
Okay.
Denise, I would like to recommend that, I don't know if it's under uses allowed or architecture, that it would say of a historical nature or a historical fit or matches or resembles historical homes in the neighborhood. And I know that the historical overlay did not go through, but I really think it's that important that anything that we do in that part of town be preserved and made a historical look.
How can we expand that just a little bit then?
On the uses allowed.
On compatible in the neighborhood, how can you just hone it just a little bit more to include what Patrice is saying?
Well, originally we talked about uses that have historically been allowed in that area.
Well, no, or the architecture part, not the uses.
Oh. I think that's kind of dealt with in the next one is the architecture. Next section.
So in the third red paragraph, which is the second one under architecture, it says, prior to receiving a successful architectural review by the Plan Commission is in compliance with this section of the code. So we have to say that it is, right?
Yeah,
Compared to who its neighbors are, were the neighbors' houses built, as Chad has always said, that, you know, a lot of them were built in 30s, 40s, 50s,
54,
you know, that,
those condos were built, right now and a couple years ago and 20 years ago. It's just hard to sell me, I like historic stuff, I love old buildings, but it's hard to sell me that there's anything besides Roots that is historic back there, and Roots is cool, you know, I wish there was 30 of those buildings in our town, there just isn't.
right, and so when we're talking about architectural review, I mean, no offense, but there is nothing architecturally redeeming about Chad's 1954 home.
Shitty siding, small windows, I mean, it wasn't a great
You
area
know,
for building.
So do we want, you know, if we're talking about it, you know, fitting into the neighborhood, it could look just like Chad's and we would have to approve it to make it. And that's why we got rid of the whole kind of historical turn of the century thing, because there's none of those buildings really there.
That's not true.
yeah, I was gonna say across from Chad, the Razor House was the.
Yeah,
Is
I
it the
know,
first
but
house?
they don't take care of it. They can't even put paint on it and it's falling
So,
apart.
yeah, that is historic, but on either side of it, it's not, and two down on either side of it, it's not, and across the street, it's not, and it's down the way and next door in the condos, that's an old building.
The Larson home is historical, Roots is historical. The house across from the administration building is historical. That was the Magnet House. The Bonda house is historical. I counted, I think there's 7. And also the Sunstrom Corner, that's historical.
But it doesn't have, they may have been there for a long time, Patrice, but I think the issue is very few of them, the Sunstrom house, there's nothing fabulous about its architecture either. It is not like it is a turn of the century Victorian, thank you, that we're going for. There are some historical buildings, but the architecture is not necessarily historical looking. That, I guess that's the point that I'm trying to get at. And so when you talk about it being compatible in the neighborhood, some of the smaller homes there, are just small little rectangle boxes from the 40s,
Little cottages.
little cottages. And do I think they're cute? Yeah, because nobody builds those anymore. And would that be appropriate down there? But there's nothing special about its architecture.
What do we do to prohibit the building of modern, tall, ugly, square warehouse type buildings in that corner?
Well, I think that's addressed elsewhere here in the overlay.
So-
About height and,
So if I could go back a little bit, we talk about the intent of it is B2 zoned area west of North Bayshore Drive is the one area left in the village with several historic properties in an attempt to maintain the historic character of the area. And I know some question, what is that? Will provide for the development of new properties that would be architecturally compatible. The overlay gives landowners the options of developing their properties under the regular B2 standards or developing under the provisions in this overlay. So the intent is saying, you know, we're trying to preserve what's out there. And then when you get to the architecture side, it's saying, and whatever you do is going to be reviewed by the plan commission. So the plan commission, the way it's written, the plan commission does architectural review, and they should be keeping in mind when they're doing that, what the intent of that district is. So I don't think you have to change that. Aside from, or, you know, the way that we revised it last time, because it's saying. You can't just do what you want. The plan commission is going to review it, and the plan commission, their role is to look at the intent of a district when they're reviewing something and say, okay, what was the intention here? And it was to try and maintain the historic character to the best of the ability. Now, if it's Chad and his neighbor to the. If it's Chad's neighbor to the east, you're probably not gonna have much you can say because there's no historic character there. If it's Chad's neighbor across the road, the Razor House, you're probably gonna have a lot to say about that. Or maybe their neighbor, because that's an area where you are seeing the older homes. Does that make sense? It's up to you, but you have to look at the intent of the code when you review something.
and we.
Could we say historical to maintain the historical nature of the neighborhood?
Well, it does say in an attempt to maintain the historic character of the area. In the intent section, are you saying, Patrice, to repeat that in the architectures section?
Yes.
I mean, we can put historic character in there. That's easy.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
All right, so under architecture, we will slide that in
Okay.
appropriately. So I know when we met if we talked about this in November, that we decided that there should be no fee for architectural review of a refacing or renovation project because we didn't want the owner of the property to be burdened with.
Disincentivize.
Yeah, but I think I'd like to have a conversation on a disclaimer to that part. If it's residential use only. But I don't think that we should waive the fee if it's going to be for a commercial entity or an STR. If it's going to be business, I think they're two different things.
Yeah, you're right about that.
What do you guys think?
I'm not comfortable with that because of how the state legislator has ruled on residences. They're gonna call an STR residence. That's not saying I don't agree with that, but I'm just accepting the reality of the situation I am, but at the same point, Denise, I also understand your reasoning for saying that, I've always thought if we're gonna get sued, let's get sued over something that's worthwhile, we know we're not just gonna lose.
Well, it's a fee. We can't, I don't think, can we be sued over a fee?
We can get sued over anything, it's,
I think the only time you could really get sued over a fee is if it did not actually reflect the cost of services, because your fees always have to reflect the true cost of service. I think the concern there would be somebody renovates it, they don't get charged fee, and then they later become an STR.
Well, and that just happens.
Yeah, and that's probably what would happen. Somebody buys a home, they renovate it, then they come in and apply, so.
I guess you're right, we're not gonna get challenged on it, if that happens, if somebody wants to work around it, they're gonna work around it, I don't think we should spend any great effort to try and circumvent that, but just for the people that want to play nice, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Which is a decent chunk of the people.
So is that all right?
What type of fee is charged for that?
You're the keeper of the fees.
We don't have one for, offhand, I don't think we have one for architectural review alone.
Well, then we're gonna
It's
have to
site plan-
create
it's-
one.
Yeah, I think we do it's called site plan and architectural review, I think,
Okay.
so. I'll review that. If we need it, we'll revisit
I
it.
think what Husby's had to do tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody, I'm gonna go page by page, okay? So does anybody have anything else on page 34 that they'd like to discuss? 35. Thirty-six. Question on the first paragraph, B, middle of the paragraph. Setback averaging may be used to determine setbacks.
So when we had talked about that, or my
Okay,
recollection.
but may, it should be a should, or we're not, or where does may fall? And
Case
how-
by case basis.
Okay. Right. Also, on page 36, when we get under signage. The last paragraph on the page, each property is allowed one wall sign adjacent to the primary entrance to the building. Said sign not to exceed 6 square feet in area. We're giving them a freestanding ground mounted sign that can't exceed 8 out near the road. Don't we think 6 is a little large for on the building in comparison?
I don't know, I had 16 and you guys knocked it down to
Yeah,
6, so
I
if you
know.
think 6 is too big.
So,
I'm
but
not
then
sure.
when I was thinking back, okay, 8 feet at the road, 6 on the building, when I think if there's a place maybe farther in,
Yeah, 'cause-
where if you had a multi-tenant, you're allowed, the 2 foot.
Yeah, I mean, we're saying you can have 8, 2x4 in your front yard. You can hang it from your roof or porch and it could be 4x4 or 2x8. And if you have it on the wall, it's limited to whatever right now it says 2x3, basically. But. And then they get a sandwich board not to exceed 6. And then if there is
I
multiple.
know, it's
yeah.
all, it's getting messy, there's a
Yeah.
lot of signage.
I know, originally, I think we had said, you get a ground and you get. I think it was projecting and that was it. It's a lot of signage. So
So what do we think about getting rid of the primary entrance? If you can have a ground sign, if you can have a sandwich board sign. Well, sandwich board sign everybody can have. And then here you would be allowed a ground sign or a larger, twice the size. Extending from the overhang roof or porch.
So it's a freestanding ground mounted sign shall not exceed 8 square feet or a sign. Or a sign extending from an overhang, so it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, and then do they also still get the wall sign?
If they want to do it in 3 or 4 square feet. I mean,
Okay, so not the 6 square feet, it's 4.
it's just a lot of clutter.
Yeah.
I know it's smaller, you know, than signage that is allowed in other districts, but we talked about how close all these buildings are to the road, and you don't need that same
Yeah.
size as going down the highway as you would in maybe a more walkable, definitely slower car speed in that area.
Okay, so 4.
Is that all right? Okay. Okay.
Are we okay with how I revised that? We had talked about 3-dimensional signs, so it says on page 3, the very bottom, the sign shall be made of wood. Or 3-dimensional resembling wood, no metal sign shall be allowed.
Anything on page 37? So so we've made a few changes. Do we have to have a motion to go to public hearing on each and every one of these?
So I think we should, at the end, discuss what we're doing with.
Okay,
Can we go over the signage dimensions again, just so that I'm sure?
yep.
I got them right. Okay, so did you want to read them, Denise, or Julie, or?
Janelle, I think actually the minutes don't have to go into that level of detail. We can just say.
Yeah,
changes
I'm
to
just
the-
writing them down for our record so that we're both on the same page.
Yeah, I've got them written down here too. It's,
So they can have a ground mounted sign for 8 square feet.
That's what I was.
Or
Okay.
an overhang roof or porch sign up to 16 square feet,
Okay,
a sandwich board sign, and a wall mount sign at the entrance at 4 feet.
okay, thank you.
All right, 5F, proposed text amendments, B3 district building height limitations.
okay, so this was, again. Been discussing it for quite a while here. In it, what we talked about the last month is, or I'm sorry, the last time we talked about is shown in red. It's just very simply, as of the adoption date of this amendment, the height of a building in this overlay shall not be increased prior to receiving a conditional use permit from the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission shall only approve the conditional use permit if it has been demonstrated the additional height will not be detrimental to the view shed of properties on the east side of Bay Shore Drive within 300 feet of the building being modified. Shall be the responsibility of the applicant to prove no detriment to the view shed.
So what about is the hill considered in the view shed? Because as you come into Sister Bay, unfortunately, in the near future, all we're gonna see is that over there. Are we concerned about anything interfering with that, or because it's so high up?
Well, I think that was originally the concern when it was proposed by Laurel was when you come down that hill, you're just gonna be going through a tunnel of tall buildings. And
But I mean, seeing the water, but I'm saying because the hill is
protecting the
so-
view shed from,
from the hill as you enter Sister Bay, or is because the hill is so steep that even if something, you know, were to happen, it really would not interfere with that panoramic view.
you know, I think that's a good question. I mean, clearly like Husby's, that area, that's not gonna affect your water view. I don't think it's until you start looking down the hill. I mean, you can't see over Husby's now, right? You can't see over that whole triangle area now.
And I didn't drive to see what I could see. I
Yeah.
just thought I'll just,
I don't think. you
Ask the
start
question.
looking-
Maybe the question is there anything, so looking at the view shed, looking at those buildings towards the bay, is there anything outside of there that would impact the view coming down the hill? And I don't think there really is, because by the time you get down to the bottom of the hill, you're not seeing the bay anyway.
all right,
And if you think just in Husby's and the house next to us and Roots, we're up higher, anything below us, however height restriction is. And that's probably 12, 15 feet below us, and they're gonna be building off that ground. They would never probably be over us even or ballpark. Because it drops off right behind our parking lot quite a bit.
Okay.
So,
Well, a good
I don't-
example of the view is at the Sister Bay Bowl. You look out the windows and there's a beautiful view of the bay. And they're on the hill. So if you cross the street from there, what we're trying to do is stop these high, tall buildings blocking the wonderful harbor view. And they will if they're allowed. So we need to put the brakes on that. But across from the bowl and all the way down until you get to the residential area should not be tall buildings. I'm not sure about the top of the hill where the Frick's house used to be, the blue house, which is a short-term rental now. If that could block the view,
I don't think so. I think it's already. I don't think so.
So based on what Patrice just said then, so let's use the view, I'm so sorry, the bowl as an example. If someone within 300 feet of them wanted to put up this tall building, they would have to prove to us they're not blocking the bowl's view, their view shed.
Right, but that's the whole, right, that's all written in here.
That's what it's
already.
for.
Yeah.
So it does what it is
Yeah.
intended to do.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the hill, coming down the hill in a vehicle. Just wanted to
Yeah.
have that conversation, but okay.
Denise,
Okay.
what if somebody built the tallest they could go on that property right behind the church there, where the Frick's house would be? That'd be a gorgeous view for them. But would that potentially block the view of the harbor?
Not the way I see it on the map that's here on page 39.
Do we need to say view shed of the bay, Green Bay? Because otherwise somebody's gonna block some sort of view shed somewhere. Is
Yeah,
that not
I
our
think-
intent?
Good point. Okay, we're all good with that?
Good.
Okay. All right, 5G, proposed text amendments, chapter 50 and 66 miscellaneous provisions. Okay, we start at page 42. Anybody? 43. 44. I have a question. First line D, the plan commission shall have the authority to exempt a developer from securing a development agreement. Are they always a developer or would it, is it owner developer? Is it, do we just use developer as a catch-all?
I think it's kind of a catch-all. Let me just check the definition now.
Developer is not defined,
Right,
so do we wanna,
an applicant,
well, we probably don't have that defined either.
Denise, are you referring to something that would not be like a subdivision that's already planned out? Maybe somebody's picking up 5 acres someplace and they want to put a house on it. So are you saying,
If they're putting up a single family home, there would only be a development agreement if it was unplatted, correct? Like
Right.
what we did out on Country Lake.
yes,
Yeah,
okay,
so earlier in that section, we used the word applicant, so we should use the word applicant.
okay. I didn't catch that. Okay, great. Anything else on page 44?
I'm questioning three quarters. And I understand we're using this elsewhere, but that's one dissenting vote. And I guess practically speaking, how often does that happen? It happens once in a while. Once in a great while, do you have that one? I've been that one a handful of times in the last 15 years. But I think it should be 2/3, because 2/3 is still a heck of a hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, I know we do 3/4, repeatedly we do 3/4. I don't think I've ever seen 2/3. I think in the worst case scenario, Nate, they just have to get the development agreement. It's not saying they can't get it. It's just saying. Like tonight, with Ben, the question was, does he get charged that extra money, have to go through that board, have to have this recorded on his deed, etc. And what this is saying is the plan commission can decide by 3/4 vote. Do you have them go that extra mile, or is it okay the way it is?
I guess in generally speaking, because we've been doing 3/4 this whole time, I'm saying once in a while, we should question that 3/4, and I'm questioning that 3/4. And I'm not saying we need to go back and change it, but moving forward, 2/3 means it's a 5-2. For 3/4, it's 6-1. Just to quantify it, if we're at full commission. And that's still a pretty high bar to overcome. Like I say, the 6-1 votes are extraordinarily rare. That's my thoughts. I would like to see it be 2/3.
Okay. Can we put a pin in that
Sure.
and have, in the future, because Janelle will put it in her tickler file, that we will have a bigger conversation on where 3/4 is used throughout the code, and we will take
Yeah.
them issue by issue and see what we deem
Yeah.
could be 2/3 versus 3/4.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Are you okay with for now this moving forward as 3/4, Nate, so we can get these amendments through and then?
I mean, I still want to be 2/3, but I'm not gonna say anything more about it because Denise has agreed to put it on later, so yeah, I'm not gonna say anything.
Okay, move it forward the way it's
Move forward.
written, and then someday we're gonna revisit that.
All of them, which is fair.
Yeah.
Okay, anything on page 45? 46. 47. 48. 49. 50. 51. 52. 53. 54. Are you sure you all read this?
I'm looking for, I made notes on one of these pages and I can't find it.
Well, we can go back if you find it. Okay. 55. I have something on 55. Renewal of permits. If construction has commenced prior to the expiration of a regular zoning permit or conditional use permit, but is not completed prior to such expiration, a 12-month renewal regular zoning permit shall be issued by the zoning administrator. So is that elsewhere in the code that we just automatically renew for a whole year? should it be maybe more a 6-month interval?
No, usually when you see a permit renewal, it's a 1 year.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's normal.
But normal, but kind of like Nate's thing, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Denise, on page 48, the bluff overlay protection, I'm just wondering if that is strong enough. Because what's happened with the Goki property and how they have totally destroyed the
some-
bluff there.
Estimated?
Yep.
Uh,
I as a if you
Number
I
on
mean
page
as
48, Patrice.
48 under environmental, now I just lost it. It was
Oh.
under environmental. The heck? Here we go. Is there a way
Think
to
it should
like
say you can't touch it
ban building on the bluff itself?
into the bluff.
Into the bluff, yeah.
That's what they did. I think that is prohibited.
Well, I think the challenge is how do you define that area they're prohibited from?
Don't
Okay.
have delineated on a map.
It is,
That map is
as
just,
soon as it starts going this way,
is it
Right.
this? Is it this?
What's the
Is it
slope?
this? Is it this? Is it this? I've done a lot of work on the escarpment, you guys. I was actually part of that original group way back when they were looking at that creating that escarpment guide and zoning regulations for the Niagara escarpment and all this other stuff.
with Nancy Goss?
Nancy.
No, okay.
Well,
She
it
did
was,
something with the escarpment, I thought,
yeah.
from Liberty Grove.
So this was, anyway, the hardest part, so what we ended up coming up with was guidelines basically, because it is so hard to define a one size fits all. I mean, you have bluff, which is this, you have bluff, which is this. I mean, they're
I
not
know,
all the
but when-
same.
Thank God I voted no on that project and I can go to my grave knowing that. I don't believe anybody, when that project was approved, that anybody knew what was involved with the bluff for what they wanted to do. I mean, we knew that the road came in and then did a U, and I think we did realize that, there was an incline there. But until they started building it and we saw it and heard the outcry, and then, the village made them do that assessment. It got taller, I think, or not taller, we always knew the height of the building. But it was in a higher spot, I think, than what we could actually visualize.
Yeah.
Because, we worked off of blueprints and plans,
Exactly.
probably should have had some drone photography or something, or even just standing out there and taking a picture of,
It should have been staked out. Should have been.
Well, I think that.
So I agree with Patrice. I don't care if I don't think the bluff can be touched, period. I don't care if it's a slope. I don't care if it goes straight vertical and juts back out. I think we heard that loud and clear at one of our meetings. I don't know if it was Plan Commissioner Board. Where was that, Nate?
Yeah, we did. Like Dick Burr said, it should be sacred.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm talking, how do I enforce that? Because define bluff. Does that mean that nobody on the west side of Bluff Drive can do anything? They're at the base of the bluff.
Well, when they start digging out the escarpment and you saw all the stones and rocks and bluff, and stuff they dug out for the Goki project, it was insane. They carved a hole in it.
Well, technically, Chad's here. If Chad dug a hole, Chad's digging in the escarpment. He's part of the escarpment.
Yeah, and actually I am all saying.
But he doesn't face the bluff. He's not on the bluff.
It's very easy by the content of what you're digging.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
at my side of the road, it's sand and beach stone. There's, I mean, I don't even have a sump pump in my house. And because it drains so good, that sandy soil we got there. So just to get 2 cents if you care, I think you come up with a slope, a ballpark, and then you have a setback from that slope. It's the only way you can kind of do it. But yeah, but like if the old building that you want replaced down there, Denise, even though it's old, but it's, you know, falling apart. And technically, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything there. Right, based on what you're describing. So yeah, you do have to figure it out, I mean, but.
well, the overlay would allow them to as a pre-existing structure to
Yeah.
rebuild, but. Yeah, I mean.
But
you
kind
know,
of similar.
I think the
similar
biggest mistake with the
footprint.
Goki thing is they weren't allowed to blast and everybody kind of thought like, well, that they're clearly not gonna dig into the stone. But they ground into the stone and they didn't explain that, right? They didn't.
They-
That was the.
They didn't freely
that was the
offer
error
that.
on the
They said they would peel it.
Well, they were just gonna grind it away for 3 years.
Um,
But I think you could do some kind of content there of the material. Because I guarantee you where the houses are closer to the road, I bet you can dig a shovel back there. Right? You know, and you can come up with a percentage of soil that, you know, and when you hit bedrock, you can't go any further. I mean,
There it is.
So, but
That's brilliant.
I also,
and you gotta give a little leeway to maybe add fill to allow something, right? If somebody wants to rebuild a house and they wanna go 2 more feet to have a basement rather than a 6-foot one and 8-foot one, give them the ability to add fill to grade it or something and have something practical, but if you hit bedrock, you can't go any further.
That's it.
but then we have to define the area, and I think that.
The area of the bluff, right? Yeah, you have to define that area.
And I think that we should look at it initially as a slope, but then we should delineate that. We should go through and we can take the LiDAR data that's out there, it tells us exact elevations. We figure out what that is and then we put the buffer on it. It's appropriate, but I think that one of the biggest challenges with our zoning code is where it is not black and white, and this one is pretty black and white, and that's why it actually passed in the first place. Is because it wasn't clear the basis to deny it on, so. I look at it saying that this is something we need to have this clear, make this black and white.
so. What I think you need to do then, and we didn't do in these, is come back and revisit. What is the bluff protection overlay district and work solely on that overlay district.
Okay.
So that goes on the to-do list. You have to define that. I mean, right now you have a map. And I have seen in files where people are like, well, what is that? And there was actually a point where I know you brought in Bob Cuffrin and maybe some other specialists to say, where is that? What is that? Well, it's a line on a map and you go this far over. It doesn't work that way. You know, I mean, you can have a line on a map, but you know, an escarpment doesn't follow that line. I mean, it's gonna come out, it's gonna wave in. Sometimes you have, when the glacier came over or whatever, sometimes you're gonna have fill on top of that. And maybe it's 2 feet before you hit bedrock, but that's still the escarpment, even though it's got fill sitting on it. It's just not that easy to just say everything with this slope or everything with this is the escarpment.
Well, so I mean, like, we shouldn't be talking about the escarpment. I think that that's probably the wrong term to use, because like you're saying, like, everything is the escarpment.
Yeah.
It's the bluff. It's the bluff that we're looking to protect.
We're concerned about the bluff, and I personally think that needs to be looked at very closely, because when I get down on Little Sister Road, I think you're still in the bluff. And the bluff protection overlay does not apply down there, but I've got some properties that are steep, you know, and even further in other areas in the village. So I mean, you have to look at, it's not just that little crust up by the crow's nest and all that area up there. I mean, there's other areas that you have that. So on the to-do list is to revisit the bluff protection overlay boundaries and definition.
And come up with criteria.
It's important, thank you. Good.
And then once we do that, then we could come back and amend whatever this part of it under environment.
Well, we can set this and just have them refer back to the bluff overlay, and then when the bluff overlay.
Right.
Yeah, I do think you need to move forward some of these, because we're trying to protect the trees on some of these, and
No, I'm not saying to hold this up, but I'm saying depending if. When this gets adopted and we get to reviewing the bluff overlay, whatever decisions we make there, then this may have to be amended
right,
at that time.
yeah.
We'll come back to
Because,
it.
I mean, it could take you a year before you get back to it.
Let's hope not. Okay. All right, page 56. $57. $58. I had a question.
Um,
Oh, no, this was your question.
yeah,
Because it says, but then, so issue 1 reads this way, but then the site plan section reads the second paragraph.
so on this one, I had a question, and I asked Randy. Our code says you cannot rebuild a non-conforming structure.
Which is illegal for us to say that. Correct, right?
That's my question.
Because I think the law changed. There used to be criteria, I remember this from the old days with you, Ron, that
50%
yeah,
value, yeah.
50% value.
So years ago, couldn't rebuild. You couldn't improve more than 50% of the value. In 2011, maybe 12, the statutes were changed to say you can't prohibit them from rebuilding and you can't limit that value. At that time, I believe it was in 2012, the village took out the 50% part, but they never fixed the other part. And here we are 15 years later, and I've got a code that is inconsistent with statutes and it needs to be cleaned up. So, I mean, we can't
enforce it.
we can't enforce it. It's
right.
so, so I've asked Randy, I said, hey, Randy, the way it's written, there is a little gray area in how the statutes are written. Can you give me your opinion on that? But I'm pretty sure he's gonna come back and say you need to remove that from your non-conforming structure rules. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up. I think I need to do whatever the attorney tells us to do. So when you see this come out in ordinance format, you're probably gonna see something saying we cannot prohibit you from rebuilding a non-conforming structure. We can prohibit you from making it bigger, 2-story. Elsewhere on the lot. But if you have a 10 by 20 shed, that 10 by 20 shed burns down, I can't prohibit you from rebuilding that 10 by 20 shed exactly where it's at. Is what the law says.
But if you want to make it bigger,
I can say no.
depending upon setbacks and other things.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're still waiting for that. So just highlight that, I guess, for us.
Yeah, but I'll keep you up to date on that, but I think, so when you see it go to public hearing, you're gonna see what the law says, basically. We gotta clean it up. Before we get a lawsuit.
So if there's a house that is non-conforming and it burns to the ground, they can rebuild exactly the way it was, non-conforming, as far as height and footprint?
Setbacks.
Okay,
And we do have, I'm aware of one like that, actually out on Little Sister Road that we allowed to be rebuilt pretty
okay.
close to the water. But he was limited to that area there.
Page 59. 60. I have something under C5, tree cutting provisions. Near the bottom, the sentence before the second red is insertion. Only those areas approved for the placement of a physical improvement may be cleared of trees. Why did I have that underlined? I can't remember now. Guess it doesn't matter. I can't remember. Okay, 61.
I'm gonna look at that, Denise, to see if to see if maybe. Because when I'm looking at this, I'm like, does that conflict with another area? That was in there, but I think. I'm just gonna double check to
Because
see if
they're,
it conflicts
because
with
I
something.
think they're allowed to go beyond that because they need room for the equipment. That doesn't ring a bell in my head. That's why I underlined it. Literally, I can't remember why.
I'm gonna take a look at it.
Okay. 62. 63. Okay. Now we get on to amendments needing more discussion on page 65.
So these were ones we said we wanted to revisit, and have further discussion. Building height would change to the vertical distance above the finished lot grade at the foundation of the building, should probably be at the top of the foundation of a building to the highest exterior point of the roof.
It's a whole lot simpler than all those other words.
This is
Measuring-
where my notes are.
Okay.
Because I just. If you have a walkout basement. You're gonna have more house to the roof. And if we make this so it's anywhere around the home. As far as where you measure. So you have a walkout basement. Then your front's gonna have to be lower in order to, you know what I mean? Your walkout basement is gonna give you more vertical than the front of your house.
Right.
So. As it stands right now, the back of the home is 35 feet, right?
Okay.
And the front,
23.
okay. So what if your front yard slopes? So the back of your house is the short side and the front of your house has a big slope down and you want to have something walk out to your front yard. I actually have a friend in Lake Geneva that turned her entire house plan around to do that because she was up against a big hill. So she did her walkout going to the front. But now it's like you want to change this so the footage is measured all the way around the house regardless?
No, what it's saying is, at no point can that be more than 35 feet. And I'm gonna measure it by going to the top of the foundation to the highest point of the roof.
So if you have a walkout, it can't be more than 35 feet from the back. Even though
Yeah.
your front is lower. Okay,
Right.
so 35 is the maximum. But I kept looking at this like it was going to be measured at any point of the foundation.
Yeah, at any point, anywhere, any side cannot be more than 35 feet.
Yeah, it says rather no point of the building shall exceed the allowed height unless exempted in this chapter, regardless of where measured along the finished.
Okay, so if you have a house that is 35 feet from the front. This is not, you can't do this with a walkout. It has to be 35 feet all the way around.
Well, what it's saying is, let's say the front of the house is 20 and the back is 50. It's not allowed because it says at no point shall any part of
Okay,
that building. be more
35
than
is the
35.
max.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have-
Julie,
Right, you
with
have-
all these new houses being put up on Bayshore Drive, totally blocking the view, are they maxing that out at 35 feet? It
Many of them
seems
are
like
max-
they are.
Some of them do max out at 35 feet. We've had some that have come in excess of that and they've had to revise the plans, but we do have some that are maxing out at 35 feet.
I
We have-
mean, this is just my opinion, but I think 35 feet is too tall. I mean, they're huge. Bay Shore Drive.
And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Patrice. But they own the property. They do not need to keep any view open to those who travel the highway past it. It is their view.
No, I get that.
We did change the greens, the percentage of open space or green space, which will help moving forward, because that was something that was missed a long time ago. Not everybody abused it, but we did have one built in the last couple of years that absolutely abused it, and it's ridiculous. But
I'll say this, 35 feet is kind of a standard maximum height in the planning and zoning world. Like in the county, it's 35 feet. Most cities, it's 35. I think it's always been 35 wherever I have worked. Is that tall? Yeah, that's tall. But on the flip side, that's a 3-story building and a person has a right to a 3-story building. And I think that's why it's important to say okay, 35 is it, but you're not going over that. And don't play this, you're not gonna have 40 on over here and 35 over here. It's 35. I don't care where you measure it. You're not going over 35 feet. So, I think it'd be hard to say less than 35 feet. And I agree, that is tall, especially if you're going down a narrow area and you have 35-foot buildings, but that is a pretty standard height. I mean, you can make it less. You do have 35-foot high buildings out there. You can certainly make it less if that's a concern, but it is a pretty standard height.
And are we doing really enough for, like, if someone tears down an older home and puts up this monstrosity house and uses up almost the entire lot? Is there enough room on each side? It doesn't seem like they don't have to use the same footprint that was there.
No, if somebody tears down a home and they build new, they can do that as long as they meet the code. So they have to meet the required setbacks, the required open space. They're allowed to go to 35 feet. So as long as they meet the requirements of the code. Now, we have changed a few things, in these amendments. Open space, how you measure setbacks, but yeah, in general, as long as they meet code, and that's a right? I mean, as long as you can meet the letter of the law, why would we stop?
How close can they be to that lot line?
Lot lines that seem very tight. I mean,
On Bay Shore Drive, it's 10 feet, and I think we just changed or are recommending it be changed to say that's measured from the furthest extension of the building. Because what we started seeing is really large eaves extending. So, maybe your wall is 10 feet, but you've got an eave going maybe 3-4 feet, kind of like an overhang almost into that, or kind of like a shed roof almost going into the side lot line. So we're recommending that be changed, that it's from the furthest extension of the building. But it's 10 feet, total of 25 feet.
what's the legal term for, somebody owning property and doing what they want?
Yeah, it's
They
not
quote
eminent
it out.
domain, it's, well, they have vested rights,
Maybe it's just property rights.
yeah, they have a vested right in that,
There's a fine line between, if we would choose to go lower of really overstepping and as Julie said, it is kind of the standard.
we're seeing homes, even if you have 2 bedrooms, but you want tall ceilings, a lot of people like the steep roof pitch. You climb up to 35 pretty quick. Not even 3-story, just tall, beautiful ceilings, with steep roof pitches. Now, we do exempt certain things, the chimneys are exempt and stuff like that, but you can get 35 pretty quick. I mean, I could, if you're interested sometime, I could put together a list of those that we know are 35 feet and you could drive by and look at them.
I think those ones on Bay Shore look much bigger because they just take up so much space on a small lot.
Yeah,
And they look like they're closer to the lot line because of the size of the home. So visually we think it's right there, and if it was a normal size house, it
yeah, well, definitely. The scale of the home makes,
it throws your visual off.
right, it makes it look like it's taller, bigger.
Yeah.
Than what it is.
We good to move on?
Yep.
Thank you. 66. Number 4, what's highlighted in yellow, I think just a typo. A permit is required and the sign. It
Yeah.
shall not be located in a public right of way.
So it was basically, a permit is required and it shall not be located in a public right of way. So that part was in there, or was asked to be, we said, let's make sure they get a permit for it, so we put that in there. Have the typo, and then we had created a definition for sign temporary. And that's the part we wanted to revisit. A sign, banner, flag is not erected for more than 7 days before an event and must be removed within 1 day after the event.
I think that's fair.
Okay. Next one, changes since last meeting are shown in yellow, need discussion in setback. So this was the big one. This was the water setback. Where I was supposed to do research and come back to you, so. I went along the more developed areas, I went along North Bay Shore Drive, I went along Little Sister Road. Looked at what the setbacks were, water setbacks, we had talked about. Right now you can be 30 feet, but you're supposed to be protecting the trees to 35 feet. And if you build at 35 feet, you're gonna kill the tree because you're supposed to not disturb that, the shade canopy on it. We said, well, should we be averaging? We said no. So we said, well, should there be a different water setback? So I was to look at the development patterns to see what would happen with various setbacks. So when you look at North Bay Shore Drive, if the required setback of 30 feet, you have 18 of them are non-conforming. At 40 feet, 23% of all those homes are non-conforming. If the setback were 50 feet, 36 are non-conforming.
36%.
36%. So I had just thrown this out there for discussion. Do you treat north of Sister Bay different than south of Sister Bay when it comes to the water? Should north of Sister Bay, because you have that development pattern, you have a lot of homes that are closer to the water, should that setback on North Bay Shore Drive be 35 feet, which is basically at the tree line?
I think it should be 40 feet and 9 properties become non-conforming. I like it, because if you have the tree regulation that you're supposed to protect that 35 feet, gives you an additional 5 feet to play with. I mean,
Even
all old communities have a ton of non-conforming uses and structures, and it is just
yeah,
the way it is.
even at 40 feet, they're gonna be killing the trees, right? Because you're gonna dig your hole, you're gonna backfill, you're probably gonna kill the tree anyway. But it gives us 10 feet more than we had in the past.
Right.
How deep are most of
Agreed.
those lots? From the road?
They vary, I don't know, 150 maybe.
Because some of them don't look like they have that much space.
Yeah, they really vary. They tend to
I mean,
get,
there's, some of them, there is a lot of property on the water side.
yeah. You know, and the shoreline kind of juts in, you know, if they
Which I
had,
can't see on the other side.
yeah, if you look at the air photo, it's pretty clear. They vary, but I don't know, I'm guessing 150 feet. Probably for most,
There must not be
to 200 maybe.
a concern about erosion there.
No. No, and in that area, let's face it, most of the trees are gone along the shore. So the concern isn't as great as when you get south of the village. So when you go south of the village, just page 70, I was actually able to look in the file. There's a lot of surveys in that area, so I could tell you exactly where the homes are. Look in the files, see where they were at. There's a lot of homes that predated zoning. And not everybody's gonna rebuild their home, but I think if it predates zoning, there's an assumption that in time this thing's gonna be rebuilt. So, you know, you may have stuff that predated the code. A lot of it, some of it is pretty close to the water, some of it's far away from the water, but the assumption is that they're gonna be rebuilt. You can see if this, so this is all of Little Sister Road. You have, you know, I think the majority of these homes predated zoning, so the assumption is they're gonna be rebuilt at some point. At what setback do they get rebuilt at?
I think 50 is, I like 50.
I just wonder if it's really worth it, having two different setbacks and just make it 50 across the board. Yes, we're gonna have more non-conforming north, but. For simplicity's sake on there, I mean, this isn't, the development that's happened north of the village has largely happened. Yeah, there's gonna be some houses on there, but it's not gonna impact a large number of people. And to have two, I just think we should simplify the code if we can.
If you guys would make these people in Little Sister build back 20 more feet, it's all they're gonna do is rip apart trees. If you're trying to preserve trees, you want people to build in the same spot the house is. Because if you make them go back, non-conforming 20 more feet, Little Sister, maybe it's 40 feet with some of those old homes. They're just gonna rip every one of those cedars out from the road to where the house has to be. There's always unintended consequences. It's like you really want them to build where it is. That's the best thing for the environment.
A lot of those homes are 50 or more from the water.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, what if they just build on the same footprint?
but if you care, it's one of them matters, like you care. Because they'll just rip trees that, you know, that don't need to be ripped out. Because where the house is, there's no trees, right? You know, there's none there. So the only way to take advantage is that to let as much of it in there as possible. If your goal is the environment trees. If your goal is, they shouldn't be that close to the water, then you gotta reassess your values. But if your goal is the earth, let them build where it is. Sorry for interjecting. Have a good day. Good luck, guys.
Well, I mean, if it's,
Most of these, a lot of these lots here are wooded. If you're looking at trees along the shoreline. This shoreline here is still pretty vegetated.
but say, let's say that we have a building that was built pre-zoning. They wanna tear it down but stay within the footprint. Would that be non-conforming or would that be?
Yeah, let's say you're looking at a house that's 25 or 20 feet from the water.
Mhm.
And they want to rebuild it, it's non-conforming. Under the state law, they could build that exact same footprint in that exact same location. The problem is, nobody wants to invest $1 million or whatever it is in a 20 by 20 cottage anymore. If they're gonna put the money they're putting, you know, when you're spending how much on a lot, they're rebuilding it, they wanna go big.
So one of the things like. Back in the 80s, my parents had a cottage, it burnt down, they were restricted by the DNR rules. They could not build any closer to the water, but they could build further back. Is that how this would read to them? So if somebody was within that footprint, say they were 20 feet away from the water, they wanted to come back 10 feet from there. Could they build further back even if it was?
They'd have to go to the, let's say it's 50 feet, they'd have to go to 50 feet or get a variance to make the argument why they can't do 50 feet. Now, some zoning board of appeals would say it's a step in the right direction, you know, they're further from the water than the original and they find a reason to approve it. But yeah, I mean, if it's, There's not that many lots here that aren't already at 50. I mean, but those that are not would have to go through, either comply with the code or get a variance. Or rebuild in the exact same spot, exact same size.
So if they wanted to build the same setback, but they want to make it bigger, so they went further, not closer to the water, but further back, they'd still have to get a variance on that. though.
They'd have to go to 50 feet or get a variance,
So then,
which is how it is right now.
sure, so I'm just
Yeah.
walking through this, so they're 22 feet off, I think I saw one that was 22 feet off the water. They want to build a house that's, let's just say is 10 feet deeper than that, they would have to move the entire house 50 feet back and then build that new structure there, so they'd have to.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, no, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you meant they're tearing it down.
They're gonna tear it down, but they're going to build on that same footprint, except they want to expand it back off of the water.
Yeah, if they're gonna tear it down and rebuild, the way the law is, you have to meet the setback or get a variance.
I guess I understand what Chad said, as much as Chad is a grenade lober, he does that well, he does make a point usually when he lobs those grenades, If
I
our goal,
agree with you.
what's that?
I agree with you
Yeah.
because my brain's been spinning since he said that.
I guess what I'm thinking is if we wanna limit the number of trees that are cut down. We don't want people to rebuild and then cut more trees down closer to the water. If our goal is to have as few trees cut down as possible, that may be, okay, well, yeah, cut 10 feet back from the house, build your slightly larger house. And that would be better than them having to take a whole new footprint of a house. Cut down all of that, they've got where the other house was, it's already cleared. That's a lot more trees on there,
So
so,
you're expanding on the same footprint,
but you're coming back. instead of-
yes, closer to the road or whatever,
Mhm.
away from.
I was thinking something similar to that. But and especially for the ones closest, like the 22-foot one. Okay, you don't have to come all the way back to the 50, but we'll give you 10 feet. Less trees taken down. Now you're 32 feet.
In my experience, that sounds really good in theory. But again, you're buying a big expensive lot. You're gonna put on this little addition. You're gonna take the trees down. Go look on the air photo. You can see it. You want that view, you're gonna take them down along the water.
But I guess what I'm saying is the incentive for them is going to be. They bought that house that's 22 feet off the water. They want to be 22 feet off the water because that house is there, so. If they. I guess either we say, no, you just can't, you either stay within that footprint exactly. We don't have any wiggle room for them coming, building further back away from the water.
Well, I'll give you the example that I'm working with right now. I've got one that they had a home there, they tore it down, they can be 30 feet from the water. And so they are going maximum as close to the water, as close to the road as possibly can, as close to the side lot lines as they possibly can. So the trees are gonna be decimated. Because that's what they can do. Right? You
That's
have
what money buys you.
Yep, you have a home 25 feet from the water. If you let them rebuild at 25, we're rebuilding at 25, and they're going as close to the road as they can, and as close to the side lot lines. And they're taking all those trees down in there. So in my mind, why not preserve what you can and have a setback and say, you're just not touching this part.
What about that thing that the green tier was working on? However many trees you cut down, that's what you have to plant. You
That's-
tear one down, you plant one.
Yep, and we have some pretty tough rules in here that we put in. Which is a step in the right direction. I think.
Is that coming up that
I think we might have already went zipped past that.
oh. Well, maybe I didn't have issue, that's why I don't remember.
Yeah,
Okay. So what does it say then? You have to find it and remind me.
basically, it says you're not gonna cut the trees down on the side. You can cut for the structure. It says that if you're gonna violate your planting 1-for-1. I just typed it the other day, and you're going before the plan commission.
Where do they plan them?
They have to,
I mean, on somebody else's property or?
no, they have. to be on their property.
Wait,
They- they have- they have-
A situation like that with
They
Carl
have to have
House,
a
that's where
plan
they,
approved. Okay, so on this one, we said on the North Bay Shore was 40, this one, we talked about 50. We talked about making them both the same. I think something to consider in some areas, for me, when I'm in a downtown area, I do expect to see homes, I do expect to see them closer to the water. When you're out in the bluff areas, the wooded areas, you tend to expect to see trees, and that's really what the DNR rules are all about, right? Protecting that view from the water.
there's a runoff consideration too, I mean.
Yeah, they retain, they help absorb water.
Yeah.
Once you start taking those trees out, you're disrupting the roots. On rocky landscape, as you know, then the trees just blow over.
Well, I guess I'm saying that 10 extra feet, maybe, I think that. Probably not worth the debate because it's gonna impact a handful of houses at this point. But for my, it seems simpler just to say it's a 50-foot setback from the water.
And if not, get a variance. Okay. 50 feet on all.
All right, page 71, amendments reviewed and no further revisions made.
So these were ones we looked at and we didn't make any changes last month. But I still wanted to put them in here in case you had some changes this month. Otherwise, these were ones we had.
You know, the
decided.
more I review, the more.
I know, that's why I hate to give them to you.
Okay, all right, is this it, 77 tree removal side yard, where you thought that this was? Where it says
Yes,
1 for
you're
1?
right. Yep, you're right. I believe the 1 for 1. Hold on, let me just find it.
What do you do with people that start cutting down trees after they live there? I mean, who's gonna monitor that?
I believe it or not, I get a lot of
Neighbors.
calls. And it ends up being a big hassle,
Really?
yeah. Those
We have
go
people
on
who have
for
cut
years.
trees not on their property.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. You rattle those off, I mean, those are such hot properties that I can tell you exactly where they are.
Okay, that brings us to page 81.
So new since last meeting, the board imposed in their fee schedule, they changed their fee in lieu of parking, so we have to make the code consistent with the adopted fee schedule.
That's
Page
just an
82.
FYI.
Yeah, I mean, it's unless somebody has an issue with how it's worded, but it's basically making it consistent with the fee schedule.
Okay, 5H, proposed redraft of floodplain ordinance.
So this one.
Thank you for not putting it in there.
Yeah, so this one. I think I had talked about it earlier, but that we we used the template by the DNR, adopted it, DNR lady left, new DNR says, hey, it's not for our template, and we're like, what do you mean, we use the template you gave us? And they're like, no, we want you to use this one, and I got to the point where I was done arguing with them, and I said, just send me what you want us to adopt, we're gonna re-adopt it, and just leave it at that.
5I, identify location for
Hold on.
Marge's Little Library.
Hold on.
Schedule a public hearing.
Hold on, before we get there. One thing we had talked about, last time, which I wanted to bring up to you, and that was R4. We had talked about the fact that when you put a home on an R4 lot, there's really no room for it based on what our code says. So I've done a lot of research on that, okay? So I do have something I can hand out to you, or we can revisit it next month. But I just wanna let you know, I've met with a builder. And I gave him lots of little tiny home plans, one sort for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. Had him revise them. He did this all at no cost to us. Had him revise them to make sure there's mechanical rooms, because we're in Wisconsin, make sure there's a laundry. Based on the lots that we have, you can't have a garage on the side. Garages have to be on back, so making sure there's that back door. And bottom line came out and said, okay, what exactly do we need? And so if you want to talk about it right now, I can, I have it here, but
That would be no,
okay. Next month then,
yes.
because one thing I also found is the road setback that's in the R4. If that's a 60-foot wide road, the home is in the right of way or in the road right of way. So there's some real issues with that R4 we need to take a deeper dive at. I've got them all written here. So we'll
You
do
wanna
that.
pass them around?
Sure.
Can we, the scope of R4, that was more than just single family homes though. I mean, it was more than tiny homes. I wanna make sure that like that should include townhomes, row houses and make it viable for that, or do we need to have a separate?
So, yeah, so so I'm just looking at what the minimum should be. Of course, with a townhome, that has to be a much larger lot. I know what sizes those are. I've sat down with the builder and said, what is how wide do they have to be? How deep do they have to be? And he showed me examples from other areas. Well, if you have surface parking and garages, detached garages, this is what it is. And it all depends on what setbacks you have. So just look it over when you have time. It's I think some interesting information, but we'll put that on for next month.
So we need to schedule a public hearing for next month?
Well, do you want, yeah. You want it next month or do you, because of publication deadlines, we probably should go to March, right?
Oh, that's right. That said that in there somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, it's gonna take me time to put these in ordinance format, but then I think it should be the next available meeting after that.
March.
Now we're on March, Brett's gone. Okay. So with Marge, I talked to her, she said, I don't really have a preference of where it goes. So I know in November, we said, let's delay it, talk about it again. I personally think it should go between her bench and I believe it's your bench, right, Ron? I think it's right on Bay Shore Drive, it's on Main Drag, you have those two benches, they're kind of cocked like that, I think it should be at that peak. It's in a high traffic area, it gives visibility, and it's by her bench. So that's my thought.
I was thinking somewhere around the village hall, the benches. Obviously someplace downtown, highly accessible.
Somewhere. There's a path that goes into the park there. It could be right on that path,
Right on the path.
right next to her bench.
Where are the benches?
Right off the sidewalk.
Which, I mean, I don't,
It's
By
between
the
the village.
entrance to the beach.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it between the village hall and the post office?
Yeah.
that one, okay. Okay,
On the path right by the bench.
I was thinking the one by the bathrooms. Is that real?
No.
Okay,
If everyone's okay with that, what I'll do is I'll work with Eric to get it built.
But we don't even know what kind yet.
Right.
Because I told her that there were way better ones than the ones she picked out.
You know what, though, when I met with her, she said she didn't care, she didn't have no opinion on it.
Well,
I
she first had an opinion, went on the internet, looked, picked out one that came disassembled because it was cheaper. And I said, Marge,
Don't worry about
do not worry about the cost. And I said, and then you sent her the pictures that we had gotten of the ones that you had found when we first started talking about this.
that.
So I think we need to go back to those pictures and determine, now that we have a location, what would be appropriate in that area. Obviously, if it's going to be near benches, we don't need the cute ones that had benches built into them or whatever. But I really want something like public art and that one really bright one. But she did say to me the correct criteria has to be that where you house the books must be large enough to hold children's books, because sometimes they're much taller and deeper
Sure.
than, you know, a regular adult book.
I know on my own bookshelf, the grandkids' books don't fit on there.
Yeah.
Okay,
What were
so
you gonna say, Ron? I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, you're just nodding?
yeah, I think there's, you can do a lot better than the kids.
A lot better.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. So this was in planning, then it went to Parks. Parks referred it to planning for the location. I believe it's supposed to go back to Parks.
This is ridiculous.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, this is what I think.
She was with this committee. Why isn't this committee just handling it?
So you served with Mark for the longest, Denise. You have a lot. I think you should just pick that out and run with it. I don't think we need to take it back to Parks. And I'll take the heat if Parks gets mad about that, but no, I think we just do it. You pick out whatever you think is appropriate.
I agree. She was on this committee. It's almost like this committee knows, I think, Marge a little better than the Parks Committee.
I know, but it was fair for Parks to. It is possibly going in parkland, it is their forte, so.
It is, they
It
did
was the right thing to do.
to bring it there.
To bring it there.
And they did agree to have it there, and then they referred it here for the location. So I would think Parks would be okay with it because they had approved it. They just wanted those details worked out.
All right, so you and I will just have to go through those pictures and.
And I guess I took the street view of it. I'm thinking, if it makes sense, if you can put it right between the two benches, then you kind of got
I don't think you can put it between the two benches.
like offset back there. Okay,
I don't,
you know, let's leave that to Parks and let's leave it to the guys who got to install it, however they're going to do a good job of that, I'm sure.
Julie and I will meet with Eric to determine the exact placement.
I have faith.
A lot of,
And you.
a lot of it
Thank
will depend
you.
on where the
Thank you.
sprinklers are as well.
No, I
A
didn't.
lot will depend on where the sprinklers are as well.
I am very much in favor of Mark getting this. I think we've talked about it enough and we should just.
Yeah, it's been on,
Yes.
we could have had a building built by now.
Yeah,
well, if you have sprinklers, you better make it waterproof then,
Yeah.
yeah,
you get bugs.
yeah, definitely. And not only that, that's a really good point.
Are there
Um,
sprinklers in?
I don't know if there are, we have to check that out though.
Mitch, you gotta look it up.
But we also, condensation is a really big thing when you're putting them along the water too, because the hinges rust and, you know, they don't work.
Stainless steel.
Yeah, works made.
I think
Okay. All right, it is 10 to 8. I'll try to keep all my corrections short on the comprehensive plan.
I did not bring all my notes of what I had changed. Cindy did get a hold of me. She said there are some things that she, there are some things that she missed. The commuting patterns is being updated.
Okay, well, talk to us when we get to them.
All right,
I have an overarching thing that's gonna touch a lot of different things in here. And that's the census data that we're using. A number of places that I see they're using the 2010, 2020. There's newer 2023 ACS data that is quite a bit different in a number of these cases. And I really, really think that we should get the ACS 2023 in there.
so not all the data was updated though. So, you know, and that's one of the challenges. Sometimes you're dealing with different years because not everything was updated in 23. As a matter of fact, most of it was last updated, I think, in 20.
Yeah, I mean, but I know that there's some big numbers in there that are, I mean, just the median age is 62 in here. And the 2023 numbers is 58 or 54.8, so that's. for
right,
a long
I
living
have
document.
notated that also in some very specific things where I think there's been a huge shift in a particular number that either we need to not use the ACS data and just put in our current data that we're aware of and what source that is, but okay, page 93.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah.
our money or our contract with Bay Lake and the money that
Is
we're paying
over?
them is all over. That was done in December. So, so that's means staff is gonna be updating that, or we go back and find more money and pay them to update that. So, and keep in mind, this started, back in 22, 23. And so at that time, that was the data, the most recent data. It just took so long to get this plan approved that sometimes that data becomes obsolete.
I get that, and I mean, like, if it comes down to it, there's a couple of key data points that I've kind of specified, I'm not just pulling this other data out of air, I mean, I can go through and I can say the ones that I'm concerned about. Getting updated,
I
not being,
think, yeah, I think if there's one that you're concerned about, send it to me along with the link to the actual data. The data source that you want in there.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be easiest, I think, to get that changed.
Okay, the first sentence. Village overview, the village of Sister Bay, village. Can we get rid of the village? I know that's kind of describing that we're gonna call everything the village from here on out. I hate that as an intro.
what do we say here referred to as the village, so it actually.
Or adding that, but I mean, that's just kind of, it's a no-brainer, just.
Also, the 2.7 square miles, now, we've had this discussion a couple different times. And it's like nobody can agree on how many square miles the village is. We've seen, I think we saw 3.59 online on some description of the village. And I know there's water involved in there, so this looks a lot smaller than what they said we are.
Yeah, it depends if you're counting land mass or including the water that is within the incorporated.
Where do they get this information from?
So that 2.7 is probably, I'm guessing, either off GIS data. Or maybe some USGS data. I mean, we can clarify that it is land mass or something. To clarify that. Okay.
All right, second sentence. Which is bordered by Lake Michigan to the east and Green Bay to the west. Third sentence, the village is adjacent to the Bay of Green Bay. It just said that. Think the Bay of Green Bay needs to go away. The village is adjacent to the town of Liberty Grove. Anybody else have anything on 93? 94, first sentence, the plan includes all the elements notated above and more to go beyond meeting state where it's bad sentence.
This plan includes all the elements noted above and more to go beyond meeting state requirements. Reword.
Anything else on 94? 95. End of the first paragraph. The Sister Islands just offshore the harbor opening to Sister Bay. I don't know. I know what they're trying to say. I don't know that it reads well. The
name Sister
harbor
Bay-
opening to Sister.
The name Sister Bay is believed to have been inspired by the area's natural geography. Specifically, the Sister Islands just offshore the harbor opening to Sister Bay.
I think opening to Sister Bay, just this needs
Just
to go
harbor.
away.
The
I have a
mouth of-
comment on 95.
Okay,
The first paragraph, primary settlers were Norwegian, Swedish, and German, and also there were large group of Belgian settlers, Luxembourg. It should be added.
Just and Belgian, right?
Yep, and Belgian, yep.
yeah, and French aren't included in here either. But I must be in minority.
There wasn't quite as many French, but it was Belgian and Luxembourg that had a lot of early Sister Bay residents.
Okay. Back to that opening, I think what about if it says specifically the Sister Islands just offshore, the opening to the harbor, or the mouth of the harbor to Sister Bay? Or just the harbor? Okay, never mind.
Okay. Anything else on 95? 96? 97, this is population and housing. This is where, because I think now this year Heidi said, or the end of last year, that we reached over 1,200. Or does that just,
No, I think she has that in here, because that's DOA data. Because I asked her to add,
but it says 1148 in the graph, census 2020. I mean, I can live with that. You know, it's 50, 60 people, but
DOA update. Yeah, I thought that was in there, but I'll, if it not, we'll get that in there.
page 98. '99, I have a question. The second paragraph, housing tenure. In the first paragraph, we're talking about housing units, okay, that there's 1,396. And then in the second paragraph, it says there are more homes occupied by renters in the village than homeowners. Are there homes? Are they talking about homes or housing units?
These are homes, so you've got all these little houses with individual on lots. More of them are being occupied by people who are renting them.
See, because I find that number very hard to believe. That more than half of our homes are renter occupied, are single family homes. That does not jive with any other conversation that we have
I think
had.
it should be housing, well. I think it should be housing units.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Still on that same page, seasonal housing, second paragraph. Housing stock is for seasonal use, which is lower than surrounding municipalities. Should I think just be stricken? In surrounding municipalities, which
Yes.
is lower than surrounding municipalities.
Yep.
Page 100. Short-term rentals. The number of short-term rental licenses in 2024 increased slightly over 2023 numbers, 115 properties. This is what needs to be deleted, with several receiving limited term licenses which expired in 24. That's here nor there. And continuing at the end of that paragraph, the ordinance establishes licensing requirements and is in place to ensure residential dwellings offer safe and compatible with the neighborhood in which it's located. Typo or reword. Anything else on that? 101, home value. This is where is my biggest concern. These numbers are way outdated. The assessor told us the average home value is $450,000 in the village. We cannot use 231 in a document. It is double.
I don't know where you get a house for
No.
that price anymore.
I mean, I see the data for this is the ECS 2022, so. Is there a problem with us using an actual assessors in here? I mean, that would seem to be far more accurate
Well,
information.
2022, they were lower. 2023 is when everything hit the fan,
Yeah, it was 21 is when it.
but
Well, the
our
reassessment.
reassessments.
So I think, you know, you always want to show that ECS data, because that's that statistical data that you have. But then I think, and this is one thing I had talked to her about, you know, with the HUD data, but then you say, however, based on data available from the Board of Realtors or the Realtors Association, the average home price in 2024 was whatever. So you show that statistical data from the survey, but then you caveat with the reality of what's really out there. So I mean, you don't just strike the whole thing. But you
I mean,
add to
we're
it.
that far off. I think that maybe we should strike it, because it's not like a rounding error. It's
It's double.
roughly.
Okay, what's
I
your
mean,
data
cause we were at, what were we before? 350?
Something like
And it went up about $100,000 to 450 for the median price of a home.
I mean, the county has got data on that.
So, yeah, what's the data source for this? And do you also give the data on the other municipalities as well?
Let's reach out to the county and see if they've got something. I mean, like, they have to have the taxing
And
entity.
if you change Sister Bay, would you?
Well, they're not, I don't think the county's gonna be able to tell you what the home assessment, average home assessment is. I think they'd have to actually do work to figure that out.
I mean, we're gonna be. If we can't come up with a better number than this, I think we leave this out.
I think we leave the graph out. I think
Yeah.
if we just state, according to the assessor, our home value was, and go with the assessors and,
Then are you gonna do all the other villages?
Well, yeah, it affects Door County also.
Yeah,
no, I think it, I think we don't show it.
are you just gonna show? Sister
Cause I
Bay?
don't know that we can. We can't, unless we come up with more money for Bay Lake to do the research to do it. Don't wanna ask staff to research that, but we know what Sister Bay's numbers are.
I think you should leave this in here, because this is the way you do plans, right? You're using all that survey data, but you add to it saying, however. Based on such and such, and according to the assessor, it is blah, 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 stuff like
Well,
that.
how do we highlight that? Because a graph is what's drawing your attention, and the graph is drastically low.
Do
Do we get rid of the graph?
or do we have the graph be home valuations from 2010 to 2024 or something like that? Let's highlight our information to still hold them toward the, yes, everything is going up in value so quickly. To maybe to highlight our data.
So then if you have to read it and we get rid of the graph, I'm better with that. But then you have to read the whole paragraph to. But I don't want it tucked at the very end. You know,
And then we shouldn't even talk about the other, unless it's required to talk about the other municipalities, and I would just say that this is what.
and where we
Yes,
rank.
yeah.
Is it important that we,
I think from a planning perspective, you do want to know how you rank to other communities. You know, you don't want to be in a silo. You want to be able to say, geez, our values, our home values are, we think they're really bad, but they're not as bad as Ephraim. And, you know, or maybe they are, and we need to do something to address this issue.
because
Could you
I
add
question Ephraim and Egg Harbor's numbers.
They look like they took 2022 for them. And
Yeah.
maybe 2018 for us.
Yeah.
Could you
That's what-
add an adjusted graph next to the Sister Bay one, saying this is 2024? And just leave the rest of it the same, so
We don't have ACS data for 2024, you know, you,
2023.
No, it only goes to
I don't
22.
even, you don't have,
Oh,
it. I know Nate
alright.
said it's out there, but I haven't seen it. Let me work with it. I'll put something, I'll take the graph out, I'll put something in there. I'll start it out by saying, according to the assessor, it is this. I'm not gonna be able to prove that data source, but we'll see what we get.
And that's fine. That's fine. Anything else on 101? (102). So when was the median gross rent in the village $1,030? Cause I don't know anybody that's paying that small amount of rent anywhere.
And that's that ACS data. Well, this is clearly one of the reasons why there's. I know the board talked a little bit about this, you know, the difference with ACS data and HUD data, you know, ACS is looking at statistical data and HUD is looking at factoring in cost of living. They look at the cost of rents and stuff.
Because this is even older data. 2017 to 2021.
But on page 10,
Page 102, which is, yes, page 10, the last sentence. HUD uses the 2017 to 2021 survey data,
yeah,
so it's even older.
because a lot of times you're, yeah, you're using the most recent thing available to you. So HUD probably started this big thing, which took them 2-3 years or 2 years to complete. So they start with the most recent data they have. It takes them whatever 2 years to complete it. They release the data in 24. So if something came out the year after, it's not gonna be in there until they redo that again. So that's why you're always seeing the source, because it's not always the same years of data that you're looking at.
I mean, I can live with that one, but. Page 103. (104).
One thing I want to say on 102 for the poverty. Some of the other data out there also does start speaking to the number of the poverty rate for people under the age of 18 is really expanded far greatly, and that might be something worth mentioning.
We do over, I believe that's in the economic development
Okay.
section, because it's, as we know, that's the majority of women-led households, but anyways, I think I think we go into more detail in economic development.
105. 106. 7. 108. 109.
So this is one area Sydney changed after I sent this out, because it had missed the on the map data she was using did not include Liberty Grove, so she
That's
had to
what I
adjust.
had my question about. Where's Liberty Grove? Because that's where I think most of
Yeah.
our people are coming from.
I had asked her, I said, Sydney, this can't be right, and so she went back in there, she said, oh my God, I'm so glad you questioned it, yeah, it had missed Liberty Grove.
Okay. Good. 110. 11. 12.
So now I think, sorry, I thought we were getting into some poverty stuff. I'll have to find, Nate, that is in here. I have to find it because, I'll just make sure it's in here. You're referring to the fact that all of those homes, kind of the data we saw in the housing, in my, in the program, that a certain percentage of the homes in poverty, what is the percentage in poverty, which are women-led, children under 5, that whole stuff, is that what you're looking for?
So 78% of children under the age of 18 in Sister Bay are under the poverty line.
Yes, so that's the data that we had in the pro grant, the grant application for the Wiltsey one. That's what you're looking to see in here?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important detail to mention. To say
I
that
think it is too, so, okay, so add the poverty information from Wiltsey. From the Wiltsey app.
I mean,
It's just poverty data, but
this is from the 2023 5-year.
Yeah.
ACS 2023 5
Yeah.
years. I think. One I'm looking at is-
yeah, but I guess my question is, of all the poverty data out there, you're looking more specifically for that stuff that we discussed with that application, right? Which is female-led households, children.
I mean, I guess I'm
Not getting it
I'm
that-
not sure getting into that much detail, but just say that the. Mentioning the children under the age of 18, that's really all the detail I think we should mention.
Okay, that might be in, but anyways, if not, I'll add it.
Page 113. Question under tourism, third paragraph. Let's see, starting at the end of line 3. The village also has a premier resort area tax, which adds an additional 0.5% tax to short-term rentals. Well, it adds an additional 0.5% tax to almost everything in the village, except the grocery store, except Ace Hardware. I think every other business charges it, so it's not just STRs. It's across the board. I think those might be the only. And maybe the pharmacy. Kind of staples of a community are exempt from that. Also in that same paragraph, kind of last sentence or two, the village received funding in 2023 to develop a half-mile trail and partial funding for one of the village's shuttle buses. We only have one. For a village shuttle bus.
Yeah.
What, Nate?
I was.
$114. Under weaknesses. Inadequate bicycle and pedestrian linkages between uptown and downtown. What about the rest of the village? Give me,
Well, I think that what that's really centering on is the mass of people that are living behind the pig. Connecting to downtown, so if you wanted to go from up there to the sports complex. So I don't know if there's a better way to say that, or if it just would say, but to your point, it's also just in general. too.
it's just throughout the community as a whole, I think. Because in the outdoor rec plan and the other things that we've done, we've talked about widening shoulders along Woodcrest, Flint Ridge. Maybe it was Flint Ridge. But I mean, we've talked about it in many other areas, so I mean, it can stay. I just thought it wasn't all encompassing.
I don't know, this is what you guys said, so if we wanna change it, now's the time to change it.
So you can't have me keep reading things.
I'd rather you change it now than after we go through a public. hearing.
Let's drop between uptown and downtown.
Inadequate bicycle and pedestrian linkages.
There's gotta be a better word.
Yeah.
Activity or. Network.
And also the last bullet point under weaknesses, lack of incentives for business and development attraction. Who says that's a weakness? I think that needs to go away. Anybody else agree?
Think it speaks to our strength that we haven't had to do that.
Yes. Is that all right? I can't hear a nod, you two.
I'm spinning.
Under opportunities, fiber optic installation project plan for 2025. I think 24 just needs to go away. It didn't happen. We're past that year. Page 115, under threats, fluctuating water levels of the Lake Michigan.
The original,
Yeah,
that they just added.
out of Michigan. 116. promote a variety of full, part-time, permanent, and seasonal jobs that pay a living wage. How do we do that? You know, I believe in it, but how do we promote it to actually happen? I
Is promote the right word there? Facilitate might be a better word.
facilitate.
How are you gonna facilitate that?
Through our various actions that the village does. I mean, some of it through planning and zoning. Infrastructure. That's
I mean, I think promote is not
the-
the best word.
Okay.
there. So I agree with you, Denise.
Provide a variety.
We can't
I mean,
provide it.
Well, how are we gonna promote something if we can't provide it?
I still
Maybe
come back
we
to
should, maybe we should just strike.
I think it should be advocate for a variety of
Oh, that's
full-time.
good.
That, yes,
part-time.
that's great. Okay, 117. 118 is a map.
Okay, I have two little things on the map.
Okay.
Which I have to tell you is the incorrect map.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
So what
is the correct
happened,
one the next one down?
what happened is they forgot to put in. Oh wait, maybe not. I told her, because they forgot the map that showed the proposed routes. And then we had talked about some proposed routes and then we changed them to actually like I'm thinking of the one by Nick Dudley and then that was changed to a trail map. So this map missed those, like Canterbury Extended and all that other stuff.
Well, the next map shows off of Fieldcrest Road, it shows Fieldcrest Lane, which is correct, and Glen Lane. In the first map, it shows nothing
Oh, it's
for
got them-
Glen Lane. Glen Lane is the first one, and then where they have Glen Lane written, that's Fieldcrest Lane.
You know what? Do you remember in the beginning that was messed up? So that's telling me they used this old map. Which was probably done. One of the first maps they maybe did. And they didn't update it once we found that error, which tells me there might be some other error. So you guys look at that, because Mitch, you were really good. You found some errors in that original base map as well. Do you remember that?
Yes, bittersweet. Look at,
Bittersweet's the same bit. That one's corrected.
okay, that one is correct. All right.
I will confess, I did not look at the maps. I concentrated on the words.
It didn't use the same base map is what happened here. And I think that's the only one I'm seeing. Look at it and use the same base map, okay? Good catch.
119. 120.
I thought we discussed and said that there shouldn't be proposed widened shoulder. We should just say proposed multi-use pedestrian trail for everything in there, instead of saying we're just gonna widen the shoulder, because I personally don't think that that is real infrastructure. And if that's what it ends up being, great, but if we put it in here as that's all it's ever gonna be.
Okay, delete that.
Whoa, hold on then. Okay, because now I can't change the maps and I know.
So
we-
this is one that, and we asked her to change.
Yeah, because I know, I'll have to go back there, because I know with the maps, I know we've done a lot of flip flopping. Because it started, that one went to the trail committee, then it went to the parks committee, they made changes, it came here, and then we made changes again. So whatever we decide is kind of what we're gonna tell the other committees, trail committee no longer. does
But-
it, But
But wait, if you look at the map though, Nate,
We were just,
but it's only on Fieldcrest and South Highland and North Highland. Where we do want to widen the shoulder
well,
and probably not do a trail there. Because we put a multi-use pedestrian trail every place else.
yeah, I mean, Woodcrest,
So we
Flint Ridge.
changed it on the map,
So, I mean, like Fieldcrest is. Yeah,
and Fieldcrest should have a widened shoulder, but
it should have a trail on there. I mean, that road is, it is a straight country road that is just not safe.
But its ditches are really bad, and I don't know that we're ever gonna get a trail there.
Oh, so if we put it on here, what I'm saying, Denise, is we put it on here as a widened shoulder, that's all it's ever gonna be. Or if we put it on here as a trail, no, it falls back to being a widened shoulder. It's better than nothing.
But we didn't change it at the time, because we changed.
So when this came up initially. back-
All of Woodcrest and Flint Ridge and Country Lane, I mean, we added everything else as trails, but we specifically did not change Fieldcrest at the time. Why was that?
Did that go to Parks and then Parks said that?
Actually, this hasn't been to Parks in a while, probably over a year.
Cause what I had advocated for, and I thought that the committee was at least, the commission was at least reluctantly on board for, was just not having widened shoulders listed. And just having everything as a trail, and if, because this document's gonna get presented to try and get funding for things over the next 20 years. And if we put it as a trail, we've got a chance of getting it as a trail. If we put it as a widened shoulder, that's all it's ever gonna be.
Well, so then Fieldcrest Road, South Highland, North Highland, you want all that trail?
Yeah, on here, for planning purposes. Gotta
So,
start
so you
somewhere.
don't want to say proposed widened shoulder?
No, I don't think we should propose a widened shoulder anywhere on the pedestrian bicycle network.
You can't change the map anyway, can you?
I can't change it, we're gonna have to pay him to change it. You know,
You're gonna have to spend some money here. I'm
if we
sorry.
change it again. Yeah.
No, just because of all the corrections is what you're saying that we need to do and not have staff do it.
So far, the stuff we've talked about, I can do, the
How is
maps
this-
I cannot do.
How is the map in the document?
They sent it to as a PDF.
I mean, I can, that's,
No, they maintain all of the maps that we use for all of the other programs, so we want them to have the accurate maps in the accurate database, because they're gonna create that official map that we adopt eventually.
But did
This
you say
map
they
goes in the
used-
park plan.
They used something wrong. They used a wrong map, you said?
They had an old one that, a different, base map that had the different road names, so we have to correct that.
We do or they do?
That's an error on their part, they're gonna have to correct. that.
Okay.
So,
I guess this, I would say this is an error on their part though, because when this came back through, when we went through all the maps, because there's like 12 maps. This was, I mean,
I can go back through and look at it and see what we told them, because we keep track of all of that. You know, I will say this though, so one of my concerns, Nate, is if let's say we're rebuilding, resurfacing Fieldcrest. And we have an opportunity to put a widened shoulder. What's gonna back that up? If we take that widened shoulder off this map,
well, put it under road then, it's not. I guess I thought I had made the point that this is not infrastructure, bike and pedestrian infrastructure.
I think you did, and I think that's why it's not labeled as a multi-use pedestrian trail. Instead, it just says widened shoulder.
Okay,
I think that's why I think we had changed the label on it. So it was not referred to as a trail.
Okay.
Does that, I think that.
I
that's
see
Right,
what
right.
you're
we
saying,
dealt
because
with this in October. I have all the maps here. I have this, I have Julie's notes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, now that I think that's what we did, is we made sure it was very clear, it's not labeled a trail, it's labeled a widened shoulder.
okay,
Does that ring a bell?
I see what you did, so there was some acknowledgement of the conversation that just didn't end up where I thought it ended up.
Now, I will say this, they do have to change this, and this is one of the things we talked about, because they missed those, again, those Appleport, Canterbury, Woodcrest connections, so that, because at one time, we showed that road going from Woodcrest over towards Rachel's, across Nick Devley's property, that was a road. And at the last time we reviewed this, we changed that to a trail. They have to put that trail on there.
All right, 121. 122. 123. 24. 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. Map on 31. 32. Map on 33. 34. 35. 36. 37. Question. Postal Service. That rigmarole just needs to go away.
Hold on, I gotta make it say operates. The United States Postal Service operates in a village-owned building located at 10685 North Bay Shore Drive, adjacent to the Village Hall and Waterfront Park. They have outgrown the building as it is currently leasing from the village. This has led to discussions by the village board about the future of the location. The village facilities plan has recommended that a new post office be built next to the library at the former Parks Maintenance Facility site. At this time, they can extend their lease with the village for 1 year and stay in its current. Okay, so that's outdated.
Yep.
Whether that be a new building located next to the library or a different location. At this time, due in part to budget constraints, a new building cannot be built, and therefore the Postal Service can extend their lease and stay in their
I
current
mean, it's
location.
just too much
optimizing
information.
energy
Just the first sentence is all that there is to say, I mean, for this.
I mean, why even mention that it was
I mean, it
built
can
next to the
be-
library?
It can talk about we did a facility plan. It can talk about that, but all the other rigmarole after that kind of just needs to go away.
Yeah.
138. 139. 140. 41. 42. Typo or rewording under the first objective. Improve fire protection by supporting the presence of and staffing of a fire station and effective fire department. I don't know what that's supposed to be.
I remember, I don't know if it should be worded different, but I know we talked about we need to not just. I don't know. What should it say? Improve fire protection by supporting the presence of and staffing of a fire station and effective fire department.
Makes it sound like it's ineffective.
I
Right.
don't know that we need to improve it, I think we continue to support.
Why doesn't it just say presence of and staffing of a fire department?
Continue supporting the presence of and staffing.
Yeah.
Continue. Supporting the presence of and staffing of a fire station and effective fire department? What, do we need effective in
I
that?
don't like that.
No,
Fire department, take the word effective out.
I think that, okay. If you go back. Is there a comma there? I can't tell, because I wrote over it. Improve. Okay. Support. An effective fire department. It's just, I think it is supposed to be an effect, we're saying that it's an effective fire department. It's just really worded bad.
What if you put an "and" in there before effective?
I just think it still just needs to go away.
I would just, like Nate said, continue supporting the presence of and staffing of a fire station and fire department.
143 is the facilities map. 144. 145. 46. 47, I have a question. Under future land use needs. Near the end of the paragraph. When considering this growth, the village should identify adjacent areas that may be annexed in the future to support residential, commercial, or industrial growth.
Denise, where are you? You're under.
Future land use needs on page 147. Oh, which is page
No.
55 to you.
Yep, no, I got one for you. Okay, so it's, oh, I see where you are. When considering this growth, the village should identify adjacent areas that may be annexed in the future to support residential and commercial growth.
In the sentence before, the village should balance population growth with maintaining its natural beauty and environment when considered. I don't know why I underlined that.
So for that, when you were talking about it's annexed in the future to support residential and commercial growth, not the industrial. That's the issue with that one. Say
Oh, maybe it was
industrial.
industrial. Yep. Yeah. (148). 149 is the existing land use map. As I stated, I did not double check the maps. 150. 51, future land use map. 52. 53. 54. 55. 56. 57. 58. First sentence. According to the village's website, doesn't care. The village board consists of, period. Or goes on to. Doesn't matter what our website says. 159 is blank. Okay.
Sure, okay. I think most of this, some of the stuff, Sydney, I think she'll change or correct. I think, as far as rewording, some stuff. I think if it's just a correction on something, she'll do it, but if we're asking for all new data sets, like we were talking about the assessor, I'm gonna have to get that, either put it in or ask her to put that. Because it's not fair to ask her now to go and find more data for something, so.
Sure, I'll send you, it's a website that's referring back to the 2023 ACS, I'll just shoot that.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to a committee official or employee.
Okay, now I show that you're gonna do public hearings on all those zoning code amendments in March. Right?
Yes.
Okay, you're also gonna do a public hearing regarding the redraft of the floodplain ordinance in March.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I show so far.
And so then we have to schedule the public hearing for the comp.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's right.
That one I think has to be a special meeting. I don't know if you're gonna get a lot of people here, I'll be honest with you. But the public needs to have this 30-day review period. We need to get it out on our website. So. Based on the board schedule and now, and the fact that there has to be that 30-day review period. I was thinking you had to schedule a special public hearing for it in early March. There should be a staff report with some of those dates in there, right? Yeah,
Where,
so the
where was
public
that?
hearing, page 88, so the public hearing must be 30 days prior to adoption. So if the board adopts it at their March meeting, that means a hearing would need to be held the week of February 10th. But there isn't time to get it in the paper or make the revisions, right? So we need to look at a later hearing with adoption, ideally in April. So if you went to the April 15th board meeting, that means the latest you could have the public hearing would be March 15th. But even at March 15th, that's before your normal meeting, so there'd have to be a schedule or a special meeting.
And if nobody shows up,
We've wasted our time, but we've done what the law requires.
and we're in and out in 10 minutes.
I
Oh,
hope so.
God, don't say that, Denise. You know better.
Okay, so.
That's a
what date
3-hour
are you
meeting
thinking?
now.
Cause I'll see if the room is available.
What date?
What day were you thinking of, Emily?
So I think the board meets April 15th, right? Is that the third? Does anybody have a calendar here? Janelle, do you
So
have
the
one?
first is a Tuesday.
Yep, they made the
So that would be
15th.
the third one. So April 15th, tax day. Is when the board meets. So that's when the board would adopt it.
So we could Monday, March 3rd, or Tuesday, the 4th, Monday, the 10th, or Tuesday, the 11th.
I personally think you should go earlier in case there's edits or changes that need to be made.
Monday, the 3rd, you have parks.
I prefer, if we can keep it on a Tuesday, that's just a lot easier.
The 4th is clear.
And let's do it the 4th.
March
Is
4th.
this for planning or for board?
It's the public hearing.
Planning,
Okay, what's the date?
March 4th.
Oh, you're so lucky. You're still
At what
gonna
time?
have-
Okay,
I know you're gonna-
what time are we doing this? 5:30?
5:30. Shoot.
Till 10:30, go ahead and put it on there for me.
Okay. And then just for the minutes, can we just talk about a future meeting for the bluff?
Yeah,
Just
that's
add
the
that to
only
it.
thing.
And you had discussion regarding the villages R4.
Oh, yeah,
Regulations.
and R4, yep.
And dark skylighting,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
so we
Okay.
don't forget that.
So the discussion regarding the glove protection regulations,
Not necessarily for next month.
no, just
Right,
add a
okay,
future meeting.
yep.
Okay, and the R4 is the same thing, right?
No, I think so
R4 is
the,
next.
R4 we have to talk about next month,
Okay.
along with dark sky.
Okay.
Okay, with that being said, at 8:39, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion by
Second.
Kane, second by Carr, all in favor?
Hi,
Thank you,
thank
everybody.
you.
Denise, quick question. The medical center, when they